Welcome to Comtrack, where you'll never have to watch a movie alone again. I'm your host, Tim Leifheit.
And I'm Hannah Subnewski.
And we are here for the big one this
Blade
year.
Runner.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Yes.
We've done Akira, or at least I did. We've done The Running Man, and now the big one of 2019, November 2019, Blade Runner. The big... Oh, this is such...
We've been hyping this up. So
we have been. It's going to be a really awesome show. Okay, so... I want to, because I know you're a huge fan of the Phil K. Dick novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Yeah, I've read that. I reread that one last week just to prepare, just to brush up on all of this. You haven't read the book at all.
I have not, actually. It's on my shelf. I've been meaning to read it, but I actually put it off for this episode just so you could be the expert.
Oh, okay, because you're gonna see me mess up and fuck up certain names because I haven't actually seen the movie in about a year and a half.
Oh,
so
really?
You're gonna hear me say things like the Rosin Company and like J.R. Isidore, and you're gonna be like, "Who the fuck is that?" Hannah?
See,
but
I rewatched 2049. And I also watched the brilliant documentary Dangerous Days, The Making of Blade Runner, which is a 3.5 hour long documentary. It's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Another thing that I really want to do, and this is for any listeners out there who are looking for a Christmas list gift for me, Future Noir, The Making of Blade Runner. It's a book. I forget the author off the top of my head, but yeah. Oh, and honestly, for those of you casual listeners who just want to get to the movie, there's a sync button below where you can just skip past all the bullshit, because we're going to be talking about this quite a bit before we start.
We're going to be introducing that.
But anyway, I want to know where your first exposure to Blade Runner was.
My first exposure to Blade Runner was just, oh gosh.
Because
I think we watched it for the first time together, but I was acutely aware of the movie for a while.
I remember mine very, very vividly. Yeah. It was another one of the screenings at my college in BGSU. I believe it was for Tuesdays at the Gish, and I actually made sure to get a front row seat because I've been meaning to see Blade Runner for the longest time. I think the most that I really got exposed to it was the soundtrack through an old friend of mine who was a huge geek about soundtracks. And he played me the love theme, and I'm like, I'm in. But we sat down and watched it, and it was the director's cut. Because tonight we're watching the final cut.
The definitive version.
The real version, you sons of bitches.
But, Did you watch the same whatever video that I watched last night? Because I went.
Oh, is it Nerd Writer?
Yes. He said sons of bitches.
You son of a bitch.
That's the first one that I had to watch.
But the final cut is. I've actually seen 3 different versions. I've seen the work print, which is awful. I've seen bits and pieces of the theatrical cut, which also was not very great, mostly because of it's the voiceover from Harrison Ford.
Oh, voiceovers make everything worse.
Oh, you have no idea. It's not just the voiceover.
Yeah.
It's his delivery, because he was actually not a fan.
I can just imagine Harrison Ford getting a call back to record some ADR, and he's sitting there with a scotch like, when the fuck can I go home?
It sounds like he's
I want to
like
build
that.
A plane. I don't want to be here.
Dude, like, if you've ever heard like his delivery on his voiceover work to narrate the movie, he sounds so disinterested.
I just want to be there just because I'm a big fan of Harrison Ford not liking his own films.
Well, he really hated the dialogue. There's actually points where, I think it was in the documentary, Dangerous Days, that he literally just stops in the middle of the reading like, is this really necessary? Like, literally, he's just turning to him like,
one of my
fuck
favorite interviews with him is, they were asking him if he was going to, go see this thing, the new Star Wars movie of like this generation.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think they said, oh, are you interested in seeing yourself in this film? And he's like, not really.
Nah.
And they had to like stop it. Like George Lucas gave him a look like.
He's such a grouch. He's such a charming grouch. I love him.
Oh, yeah. If you talk to him about his actual hobbies. Because
Yeah.
I think that's what he was. Is he was just a carpenter on set. And George Lucas was like, you want to be in my one film, like American Graffiti? And he's like, I guess.
And then
I'm here. It's a one-off thing.
And then when he was brought on for Star Wars, he was literally... George Lucas said, I'm not going to cast you as Han Solo because we've already worked you in American Graffiti. I want completely unknowns. But during the initial test readings, like he was feeding sides as Han Solo to some of the other actors auditioning for Luke and Leia, and the whole time George Lucas is like, he is kind of good, isn't he?
Oh yeah.
So
He's acting, and I love him.
And then when Star Wars was a hit, he was just like, yes, money. Now I can do stuff.
Oh man. And they keep bringing him back.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm 60, I have an illegitimate son, I don't want to be here.
That's literally all of his
all
movies.
He does
like,
is
come back for his illegitimate children.
Yeah, if you don't have a dad, it's probably Harrison Ford.
Yeah, Darth Vader, you ain't got nothing on him. But
oh no, he's just popping them out left and right, continuing the Harrison Ford bloodline.
Oh my god, it really is. I mean, we've got
emo kids who don't know their Harrison Ford.
Because we've got I forget her name at the end of 2049.
Oh, the doctor.
Yes, I don't remember her name.
I feel like it's Elise.
Then we've got Mutt Williams, who's Indiana Jones's kid. Yes. Kylo Ren, Han Solo's kid. Like, all of his most iconic roles are now just having... Can we bring back...
Every 80s, like, bring back Harrison Ford. It's just like, I'm your dad. Boogie, woogie, woogie, woogie.
He would do something stupid.
An old vine, you're my dad. Boogie, woogie, woogie. But, any character in a reboot, and then Harrison Ford.
Wow. But anyway, going back, my first memory of Blade Runner. Yes, there is some logic to this. I assure you, people.
Yes.
I saw it at the Tuesdays at the Gish, and so it wasn't the greatest presentation. Like it was on one of those 4x3 screens, and so it looked like you were watching a picture within a picture, and the picture wasn't that big, but it was still in widescreen. The picture, again, the resolution wasn't all that great. It was the director's cut. And the whole time I remember sitting there, I'm like, what the hell is going on? And it was up until a moment, and I'll be sure to mention it in the actual movie during the commentary, where I realized, okay, this is brilliant. It took me a very long time to realize just what a masterpiece this really was. And it wasn't until I went back to watch the final cut, because that was the next version I watched, where everything just finally clicked.
I think that's a lot of people's experience because it's a very slow movie.
Yes.
It's very visually interesting that you're just kind of laying back, taking in the sights.
Yep.
And you don't really think about the themes until you get a good percentage into the movie, and
oh yeah,
they creep up on you.
Yeah.
Versus...
Because, I mean, a lot of, like, really great masterpieces. Some of my favorite movies, my feeling at the end of the movie was, what the hell did I just watch? And it wasn't until, like, watching, say, another version of it, or just, like, watching it again later, much later on, that I realized, wow, this really is ahead of its time and really a great piece of art, you know? And then after watching the final cut, which I still think is my favorite, I did watch the work print just because I'm thinking, ooh, work print, this is going to be weird and kind of dumb and bad, and it was.
I have never seen any of the different versions. I think that's my biggest gap in my knowledge of Blade Runner is everyone's like, this is a good version, so I just watched the good version.
I want to just check it out just to see what else there is, and... yeah, I also seen snippets of the theatrical cut, which is slightly better than the work print that I'm told, but that voiceover is just so... and you know what's weird? I know there's actually major filmmakers who both hate and love the voiceover. Like, for instance, Guillermo del Toro, he loves the voiceover. He loves the voiceover.
Like What We Do in the Shadows, it's
Guillermo. But he loves... the voiceover throughout the movie, and that's like always been a big part of him. Unlike there's another one like Frank Darabont, he mentions like the whole during the Tears of the Rain sequence, he's like, I love that. I am in ecstasy with this moment, and then as soon as he dies, you hear Harrison Ford start to speak over narration, and he's like, no! I was like in the middle of coming, and it was like being spit in the face.
Voiceovers just always don't play well with drama for me. They always make me think of, like, the last 3 minutes of an episode of Scrubs. Just like, And then I realized that maybe we're not all that different. Doctors, people, we're all just trying to fix what's wrong or something. Like, it's too neat.
Yeah, right?
Narration is lazy. If I wanted narration, I'd read a fucking book.
Well, the whole reason why they were doing that, because
Probably a throwback to film noir or something like that.
Partially, because especially in the work print cut, the dialogue that they used is very, very Mickey Spillane.
Yeah.
You know, but the whole reason why is because the producers, again, they were having that feeling like, what the hell are we looking at? It's gorgeous, but what the fuck is this movie?
It's not a very plot-driven movie.
No, it's not.
It's
so
thematic. So
they wanted the producers insisted to give it a voiceover just to explain to the audience just what the hell is going on.
Oh yeah.
So it does take you out of the moment, but thank God Ridley Scott decided to not use any for the final cut, because this is actually the only version of his that he has full creative control. Because while the reason why there's so many cuts is because while they were making the movie, they were promising licensing and rights to all these different people, and when it was finally finished filming, all these other people were like saying, no, do this, do this, do this, and it got all jumbled. Because if I believe I'm correct, and I could be wrong, there are 7 known versions. There's the original work print that was showcased to the producers as a rough cut. Then there was the rare San Diego premiere cut, which premiered during one of the very early Comic-Cons in San Diego. Then there was the U.S. theatrical cut, the international theatrical cut, which was a little bit more, lenient toward the sex, nudity, and violence. Then they came out with the director's cut in the 90s, which, again, was kind of still mostly like the studios just saying, hey, we got all this really cool stuff to, like, they actually released the work print in, I believe, the early 90s, and fans of the film got so excited, they're like, let's do a director's cut. And Ridley Scott wasn't very interested in doing it, because I think he was knee-deep in another film. I forget which one. And when they were still like, the director's cut, I'm like, there's still stuff where you're like, why did they do that? Like, the biggest one is when the dove flies away.
Oh, yeah.
It's a clear blue sky that's clearly just a factory on some weird location and not, like, in the alleyway film that they replaced, thankfully, in the final cut. But that the final cut is the one that Ridley Scott said, this is truly the final one. Not going to do it anymore. This is it. This is my vision. And it looks gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
And before we get into it, there's just one last thing that I think we should talk about, because it's going to come up later on. Blade Runner 2049.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's great. I am not going to draw my line on whether it's a better sequel than the original, but it's really, really good. And if you haven't seen it, you should watch it before we review it 30 years from now.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like that movie is just...
They were playing Blade Runner 2049 in an art exhibit that I was at this week.
Yeah.
Full on.
Yeah.
Okay. It's really good.
Well, honestly, I remember...
And it raises you're in a different headspace when you know they're a replicant the entire time.
Yeah.
It asks you a lot of different questions.
Yeah. See, I wanted to hate it so much. Like, I remember when it was announced, I'm like, this is stupid. Don't do it. I saw the trailer. Was not impressed. I said, I can't wait for this movie to come out and for me to laugh at it. Because remember, this was the height of the, the reboot, re-sequel, like,
oh, yeah,
all the stuff from 30 years ago that's making sequels, and it's just like...
I think Crystal Skull had just come out.
No. Crystal Skull. It was Force Awakens.
Force Awakens had just come out. And
Yeah.
Force Awakens was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. But it was right in the midst of, like, the reboots and remakes and sequels from 30 years apart. And it's just like, you're picking the one that I just don't want you to touch. Don't do it. Leave it alone. And then the reviews came out. Day one of Rotten Tomatoes, 93%. I'm like, what? 93 on the first day? So I went to go see it on the biggest theater that I could see it on, giant sound system, and holy fuck, like 10 minutes in, I was blown away.
Blade Runner 2049 is the only film that I've watched just twice in a row in one seating.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I can believe it.
I was on a plane and I saw that they had it. I finished it. And I was like, great.
Yeah.
And then I looked at all the other stuff and I was like, again.
Mm-hmm. Because honestly, like the biggest issue that I had was that it would ultimately pull the rug under the original's one of its great questions: is Deckard a replicant or human? And I'm like, no, let this be. Don't answer a question that's so interesting.
They answered it and didn't ruin it.
No, yeah, no.
That wasn't the focus at all.
That's what blew my mind.
Is that it's like, okay, he's a replicant, who cares? We have other questions to ask.
Yes.
Here. We're not here to clean up the original and make it undiscussable.
And because it was so slow and deliberate and felt such like a great extension to that universe, I was so happy.
And they blurred the lines a little bit. I love Joy as a concept, like as a character,
yes,
because you've drawn the lines. Okay, it's like, okay, here's a human, here's a synthetic human. Are they both human? Yes. Okay, now what about this AI who actually is programmed to think a different way? Is she human? Oh, fuck. No?
And then
and what if you're a synthetic human, but you have real human memories? Are you more human than a synthetic human who doesn't have real human memories? What does it mean?
Oh, and to make it even more dense, that sex scene where where Joy syncs up to a replicant prostitute.
Oh, yeah.
It's as if to say, like, it's literally melding the two ideas into one. That's so cool.
Oh, yeah.
Like, not just as a visual effect, but as a thematic one.
Mm.
Holy shit. Like, I honestly, I really should have seen the fact that movie was going to be really great, just based on it was Denis Villeneuve who directed it, because I hadn't seen any of his previous movies.
Like the coincidence of like physical love and emotional love, but both in a way that you purchase and are inauthentic. Just trying to push those items together to create a real human experience, but no matter what you do, you're not going to have a real human experience.
And well, Kay isn't human anyway. So
yes, but he is, but he's not. But what is human?
See, this is why it's so cool. This is why it's so cool.
That's what happens when I get people. It's like, hey, do you want to come over to my house and watch some Ryan Gosling movies? It's like I've got Blade Runner and Lars and the Real Girl.
Oh, please throw in Drive in there, dude.
Oh, Drive is good too.
Yes.
I have not seen The Notebook.
I haven't either.
I love Ryan Gosling so much.
Fuck yeah, dude. But so yeah, Blade Runner 2049 is one that we definitely, because I know that's going to come up every once in a while, and I just wanted to get that off my chest.
Yeah, we will be bringing up Blade Runner 2049
inevitably.
Lot. If we're going to be sitting in front of this movie for 2 hours.
Yes.
I'm not going to not talk about Kay.
Yes. So anyway, now that we've talked to death about this movie, and
we're gonna
actually watch it. So folks back home, again, we are watching the final cut. Not the directors, not the work print, just the final cut. Oh, and by the way, there's even a fan edit out there that's a little bit longer than this, called the Nexus 6 fan edit.
Ooh, we can talk about that during the movie.
I haven't actually seen it yet, so I don't know anything about it. I just know it exists.
Okay.
Which is cool.
All right.
But anyway, so you guys got it home. You got it on streaming. You got it on Blu-ray. You got it on VHS. Whatever. I just really hope you're ready to roll, because we are going to start the movie in 3, 2, 1, click. And there's the opening logo. Alan, I believe it's the Ladd Jr. company, which is Alan Ladd's subsidiary, because Alan Ladd Jr. was the guy who invested in George Lucas to make Star Wars.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, George Lucas pitched him Star Wars, and he's like, "Look, I have no idea what the fuck you're saying, but I think you're talented, and I'm going to invest in you. I'm not going to invest in your movie. I'm investing in you. I believe in you."
Aw.
Yeah. Already. Like, the music of Vangelis. Like...
Oh, it's not playing for me. Hold on.
There's the title. Yes. Oh, Rutger Hauer.
So, the music in this was made with the synthesizer that they use is made famous by this movie.
Yes.
And it was one of the very first synthesized machines that
Yes.
was pressure sensitive, the
Yes.
way that a piano would be. And so one of the facts little things I love about it is even the music was like improvised human emotion reacting to the screen, but displayed through a very heavily like computerized
Yeah.
voice.
They
So even that kind of represents the life of maybe an android or a human living in android civilization like that.
Yep. What I really love is also just because Vangelis was one of the guys who used his very first takes on some of these.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
I think he just played the movie and almost like just improvised it right on the spot.
Yeah.
And tried to use as much of that as he could.
And the effect is amazing. Like the prologue, this opening title sequence. This is like one of my favorite night driving soundtracks, especially when it's raining. Oh, we got our opening crawl. The Tyrell Corporation. Basically, like if Jeff Bezos was more interested in androids than exports.
Prime droids.
But yeah, man. See, and this is like, I feel like Ridley Scott was really hesitant about using the kind of crawl that they have here because, Star Wars was literally just out. Plus, he just got off of another science fiction movie, Alien. Like, as a matter of fact, he turned the movie down. I do love this. Like, they called their executions retirements.
Yeah.
That's great.
Sometimes I really hate this kind of tell don't show type thing.
Yeah.
But I also
here it is. This
November
is it.
2019. Hey. I also often in sci-fi and fantasy find that the world building for plot can be very boring.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'll read a fantasy novel, get 30 pages in, and I'm like, I get it. You're generic medieval England, there's some magic, who gives a shit? But the king killed the dragon, right? I don't care.
Dude.
So getting right into the themes and the characters and the visuals without having to put in all these extra scenes to explain what an android is, I think was the best move for a film like this.
God, look at those. These are models.
Wait, really?
These are all, well, it's a model about 16 feet long, and it's on 4 different tables in forced perspective, so they actually look more distant than they actually are.
Oh.
And all these ships had to be, composited and processed, but they had thousands of miles of fiber optics in order to get those distant lights. So the
skyline is one complete physical object.
Yeah.
Or 4 on different tables, but still.
But it's all in-camera stuff. Isn't that nuts? And the Tyrell set, okay, just because of how it was super logistically weird to make, because when you see the long shots, it was actually built on the ceiling, because of the fiber optics that because there would be too many on the floor, so they actually had to hang it from the ceiling in order to get it right.
Wait, was it upside down though?
Yes. And they turn the camera just upside down on a motion control camera.
Okay, what were the flames real? Those are composited?
Those are composited.
All right.
However, the Tyrell building got so hot with the lights that it actually caught fire and it no longer exists.
Oh no, what a shame.
Yeah, it was destroyed. The Voight comp test.
Oh yeah. Our first introduction to eye symbolism.
Yes.
Symbolism.
Well, we had there's a lot of eyes.
Oh yeah.
Especially the all-seeing eye that you see
at the beginning with the city, just 5 seconds ago. Yeah.
No one. I love how that's really not specifically meant to be any character's eye.
Oh yeah.
It's simply more supposed to be ours, And I really love the recurring theme of eyes in this movie.
It even carries on into the sequel if you talk about.
Yep, it totally does.
Decker
That's the
only recognizing that Rachel was
her eyes are green,
or Wallace not having eyes at all.
Exactly, man. Or even the very opening shot is an eye opening, an awakening, which is so cool.
Oh, that's so thematic.
Yes.
Waking up to your human. I love it.
Ah, so good. Now, I remember, oh God, I forget this actor's name. Unfortunately, he passed away not too long ago.
The one playing Kowalski?
Yes. Although I do know that he initially didn't get the audition, but it was Ridley Scott's secretary who convinced him otherwise. He's like, that man's super fucking scary, and I don't think you should hire him. Ridley Scott immediately hired him because he was so scary looking. You know who he actually reminds me of?
Who?
He makes me think of Michael Keaton. He's got the same kind of
face.
He's kind of has the same bat brow.
Yeah. Now, if you read the book, all the Voight-Kamp questions are lifted from the book.
Oh, are
they?
It's
kind of funny because a huge context of the novel was left out in the movie. Like the two major differences are number ones, you have normal humans.
Yeah.
Then you have the replicants, but then you also have another class group called the specials. Basically, the reason that everyone's moving off-world, they basically say, get off Earth, go to a colony, we'll give you an android slave. It's because of nuclear fallout from World War III.
Oh, shit.
But it's basically made a lot of people mentally challenged.
Damn.
And so you have to pass 2 tests to be able to move off-world and get rights. One, an empathy test to prove you're not an android.
Yep.
And another one, an IQ test. So the man who actually takes in, like, Pris and Roy is also seen as less than human because he can't think very well, and they're seen as less than human because they can't empathize very well.
Fascinating.
So that's left out. And then also, animals all died out.
Yes, that is like a recurring theme.
So if you listen to the question in the Voight-Kamp test, it's often about helping animals, or somebody offers you, like...
Hence the turtle thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
First appearance of Deckard.
Yes.
That's the one thing that, unfortunately, they didn't get right about 2019. Print advertising is pretty much dead at this point.
Oh, yeah. But this was a big thing. This off-world is move off, and everybody wants to leave Earth. There's a lot of talk about,
like right here, you get a custom tailored genetic replicant for your needs, which is really, really a really great idea.
Oh, yeah.
I do. Look at these sets, dude.
Oh, I know.
Like, the amount of detail is nuts. Like, I think even Harrison Ford remarked, this is probably one of the most detailed sets he's ever been on, because there's shit in there that you've never seen. This is one of my favorite shots in the movie.
There's life to the city.
Well, because I love the shot because it's completely static. You have smoke in the foreground and rain in the background. Harrison's in the centerpiece, and then you got these guys looming over him. So much is going on in such a still image.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just a masterpiece of movement.
Mm-hmm. It feels lived in.
Yes.
It feels like awkward, and
I also really love Edward James Olmos, who plays the detective here. Mm-hmm. He actually came up with this whole idea of city speak, which is a combination of, I believe, Korean, Mandarin, and all these other crazy languages, like, sewn together. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of this, like, crazy hodgepodge of what he calls city speak.
Oh, yeah.
And I really wish they went more with it.
I really wish that they did go more with, like, the ethnicity of the city, and, like...
Yes.
There's a word called, like, heterotopia, like the idea that society will become super globalized and cultures will mix, or maybe all be given over to technology. I love this shot, too, because it's very... Have you seen Metropolis?
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Everything is Metropolis.
Everything is Metropolis.
Oh, my God.
Kaiba Corp Tower, Metropolis.
These are models, dude. Also, if there's any fictional car that I could ever choose to drive, I would choose the Spinner. Bitch, I want me a flying car. Oh, the police headquarters. That's just straight out of Metropolis.
That is the building from Metropolis.
Yep.
It just is.
Pretty much. I believe
Ripped
if
off.
I forget
Homage.
where exactly, But I believe there's pieces of the Millennium Falcon on that thing as well.
No, for real.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh gosh.
Like, well, I mean,
Harrison can't get away from it.
well, I mean, it's really just because they had spare sets lying around. Because this was shot in, even though this was shot in America, Ridley Scott was coming in from England.
Oh yeah.
And of course, this is the what was it? Not the Baxter Building.
I know. Wasn't when he was shooting like Alien or Aliens in England?
The Bradbury Building.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, named after Ray Bradbury.
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh, pardon. Oh, that's another really great thing that I love about this universe is how they call the replicants skin jobs, or
Oh yeah.
or better yet, Skinner. Like especially when they use it in 2049.
29. They just put it on his.
Like fuck off, Skinner. But I just love it because Skinner is so reminiscent of the N-word.
Oh yeah.
That's just so wonderful.
Ugh.
It's awful and just so
when
well written.
When you hear a fictional slur about a fantasy or a science fiction character, you do kind of want it to have that same impact.
Yeah.
Like if you're like, oh, those knob jobs, it's like
Yeah.
sometimes you're like, oh, come on. And it's like, back off, pointy ears. Like, oh, whatever.
Exactly.
You want it to hurt. I was gonna say something else about Rays too. We're gonna have.
There's so much conversation to this.
It's interesting how Asian the city is and how non-Asian every speaking character in the whole damn movie is. And I don't know if it is.
Oh, I love this. The first bit of origami.
Except for that guy. He might be a little Asian coded. He's the only non-white person who gets to speak in this whole fucking movie. Even though the city is so aggressively Chinese. And I'm not sure if that's Hollywood being racist and only hiring white people like they usually do. Or if it is kind of a, hey, we want to show you that the entire, like, the cops are all white. And the, big CEOs and stuff are all. And there's a difference between the upper and lower hierarchies of this cyberpunk world. Or are Asians only good enough to be extras for you, Ridley Scott? It's a debate whether it's intentionally symbolic or
that
what.
might be the American part of it, because again, this was shot in America, and I know because Ridley Scott actually hated working with the American team because he was actually used to operating the camera himself.
Oh yeah.
Like he's the kind of a director who will literally take the camera, look through the lens, and shoot it accordingly.
He did not have much better a job with the English team, though. Apparently, the assistant director or somebody hated him and told everybody on set he was stuck up. So they kept taking tea breaks every 5 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
just did a slowdown.
He honestly he just wants to fucking do his job. Which is probably one of the most admirable things about Ridley Scott. Although, did you ever hear about the T-shirt war?
No, I was going to tell you, I heard on Fact Fiend's podcast, there was a time when he had just set up, I think, the alien egg scene where they find all of them. And he had filled the room with fog, which took 20 minutes. And then the tea trolley came in, and everybody got their cup of tea, went outside to drink it, leaving the doors wide open, getting rid of all the fog. He had to completely set up the entire scene again.
By the way, there was something else that I just remembered when they were going through the introductions. Roy Batty's incept date is this. Notice her birth date, February 14th. February 14th, 2016.
They sexualize the female characters more in the movie than they do in the book.
Oh, really?
Pris is not a pleasure droid in the book, and the other woman who works in
Zora,
her name is Lena Luft, and she's an opera singer.
In
the book, not a stripper. So
in a weird way, I think that actually reinforces the idea, because it kind of goes to what Ghost in the Shell was doing with the Major, putting her constantly having the Major nude. In non-sexual ways, and with making these sexualized, you're like, are they even things? Are they things?
In the book, walks around naked all the time.
Yes.
And it's almost coded like she doesn't care what people think because she has trouble empathizing or connecting to humans. So when this very awkward guy is trying to help her out and she just answers the door with her shirt off, it's not because she's trying to seduce him or anything. It's just she sees him as such a nobody that it's like your cat walking in on you on the toilet. So it's almost more empowering to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it also just kind of creates the idea of like we're objectifying them because technically they are objects, and that raises the whole ethical question of whether or not are they actually being treated as human.
Oh yeah.
Which is interesting. I think that's a really
There's a whole argument on whether or not androids can consent, which
yes.
is very interesting.
Yes, it is. Oh my god, these models are so good! Look at all this shit, dude. All of that was in camera. Like, well, I mean, granted, they had to composite models and whatnot, and I've actually seen it in the work print. The compositing is not as good. Oh, I love this with the owl. There's Rachel.
And the little glistening sounds.
Yes.
They're beautiful. Like, you don't know if they're diegetic
or non-diegetic. That's the other thing that I love about this movie is how I love it when music is mixed with the actual sound effects where you can't tell which is which. Hans Zimmer actually did something very similar in The Dark Knight where you hear the dark, the Kate Bamf and you're not sure, was that a sound effect or was that part of the score? I don't know. Black Panther was also very good at this. Like, are those like ceremonial drums part of the scene or are they just part of the musical score? I don't know. And I like that.
Oh, yeah. When things are at least timed, or when you see things that come from maybe diegetic sounds swell up and slowly transform into music.
Yes. That's when it gets interesting.
Like, you could almost imagine that tinkling sound as, is there some metal thing that's what's reflecting the light on the wall? Are there wind chimes in the room? What is that? And then you hear, like, the synthesizer come in, and you know that it's the musical score.
Yes. And that's actually probably the reason why I'm totally fine with the fact that Hans Zimmer got to do the score for 2049, because originally it wasn't supposed to be him. It was supposed to be Johan Johansson, who unfortunately passed away right after he worked on Mandy, which is really sad, because I would have loved to see, because I heard that the score for Mandy is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And I would have loved to see what he would have done with this kind of universe to play around in. But Hans Zimmer was kind of the right choice, because I've seen how he edits and how he composes his music in his little studio, very much in the way Evangelist did back in the day. So Hans Zimmer did a great job on 2049. Yeah. Like his half the tracks in his score, love listening to that while I'm driving at night. I was actually listening to that
Blade
earlier.
Runner's almost more of my ambient sleep score than it is my night drive score.
Yeah, I can see that too. But oh man, dude, like I forget exactly how, like they spent like a 2.5 weeks just making the Void Comp machine.
Oh wow!
Yeah, like I think it cost like $20,000 or something like that just to make. But dude, it's just the detail and the unnecessary amounts of detail is just so amazing.
Of having it open up on screen and you getting to see that.
Yep. And the other thing that I really love, and again, this carries over to 2049, is the dancing water lights on the wall.
Oh, yeah.
I actually remember the American crew was constantly being like, why the hell are we doing this? And Ridley Scott was like, because it's cool. Shut up. They were just like, all right. But
I love the test in 2049 too.
Yes. Like how they actually say it in a really stressing tone in order to get used, like.
And it's constant tests. It's not finding out if you're an android. They've accepted that androids will eventually gain sentience and maybe empathy and then have to be shut down.
Yeah. It's just.
It's way more repressive.
They're literally just keeping them under control. I love the lighting effect on the eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's.
And his eyes in complete darkness on the other side.
Yes. But like that's always been like the big key hint that they're supposed to be a replicant.
Yeah.
Um,
You see that with the owl. You see that with Roy later on.
mm-hmm.
Um,
And so, I think even Pris at one point as
Mhm.
well. But oh, what was it? But oh yeah, that's the other thing. Did you like speaking of the owl? Did you know that pretty much all the characters have their own like animal avatars?
oh, like the unicorn, the owl, stuff like that.
Because Tyrell is the owl because of his gigantic glasses.
Mhm.
Pris is a raccoon because of her makeup.
Okay.
And of course, let's face it, she was living
was
in
in
the
the
trash.
trash. Oh, baby.
I believe. Oh God, I'm trying to remember
Can't
all the.
disconnect her with spiders after the book. That is a horrible scene.
But I know. Shit, I don't
Is it
remember.
Roy like a dove or something?
No, there was.
There's a dove somewhere in here.
Well, yeah, but that was with Roy. Roy is more
That's-
associated with the wolf because he's the leader, and he also makes those howling noises at the end of the movie.
Oh, that's true.
And for Deckard, it's usually the unicorn.
Yeah.
Because he's just such a mystery and kind of a one of a kind sort of thing. Oh, and Zora, obviously the snake.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. But I actually remember. Okay, actually, do you recognize this actor?
No, but I can't see half of his face.
That's
with my
very true.
glasses, so you can't blame me.
He's Lloyd from The Shining.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe he was just fresh off The Shining, and you know what's another really interesting connection to The Shining to this movie?
What?
Oh, sorry, these shots.
I love
so
the fire.
gorgeous.
It reminds me of Detroit.
No, for Detroit, you're probably thinking of RoboCop because that was actually in Detroit.
No, but they do. If you drive out there, they have areas that go on just for miles, like 5 miles straight of just those twisted metal production beams that aren't in use anymore.
Look at that shit, dude. You know, actually, that reminds me. All the advertisements made me remember. Did you ever hear of the Blade Runner curse?
No.
All of the advertisements that were used in here apparently had giant setbacks, or complete like liquidations after they were shown in this movie. Like Pan Am is shown, destroyed. That we know that's gone. Atari, basically just a thing that remains in name right now. It's like owned by Nintendo or something like that.
Yeah.
I forget.
Every once in a while, they release like a. I think it's owned by PlayStation.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, they release like Atari collections whenever there's a new console, and I think that's where all their money comes from. Is one disc that's like all 20,000 Atari games ever.
Yeah. So, but like even Coca-Cola had its setback in like the mid '80s with so all of the products that were shown in here apparently had either huge setbacks or just like suffered really bad.
You can go backwards on product placement, I think, if you put it in a dystopia.
Yeah.
I think if you think of like Super Size Me and McDonald's and
Yep.
how far back McDonald's has fallen, like how much their competitors have caught up to them since then.
Stickman.
Oh, cute.
Actually, you know what was really crazy?
When people think something is evil,
Yeah.
they're not gonna stop eating fast food because
No.
people are terrible, but they're gonna go to Wendy's.
Yeah. Because
I know
those bacon burgers are just so delish.
I know so many people who will shop at big box stores all the time. Go to Costco, go to Target. But if you say you're going to Walmart, they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, no!" But they're so unethical.
Mm-hmm.
You just need one documentary made. So I think if you put Coca-Cola on a big screen in a terrible dystopia, I mean, people are terrible. They're still gonna drink Pepsi, but
Yep. Yep. Well,
it'll
actually,
feel less dystopian.
oh, you know what's
drinking
actually
the
really
Pepsi.
weird? Pepsi was heavily influenced or heavily featured in Back to the Future Part 2. This is the antithesis. Coca-Cola.
This is what happens when you drink Coca-Cola.
That's fantastic. I'll take Blade Runner over Back to the Future Part 2 any day, honestly.
Well, what future has me drinking beer? Like, just none of
This one.
bullshit sugar water.
No, this one totally does. Like, there's beer. There's clearly beer in this one.
Yes.
There's not a whole lot of beer in Back to the Future Part
which
2.
Which 80s movie did beer sponsor? Just all beer. I don't drink soda.
Oh well. But yeah, also that whole scene in the bathroom, they literally put that in there just to be like, hey, he's a detective, right? Can we see him doing detective work? And literally, that wasn't even Harrison Ford. That was
They
his
just got a hand model.
that was his like even the silhouette. That
Yeah.
was his stunt double from Indiana Jones.
Oh wow.
Because apparently he had such a resemblance that they're like, hey, you want to do this insert real quick? He's like, sure. Am I getting paid? Absolutely. Oh, and the other thing.
The big
So
eye.
yeah,
Eye world.
I fucking love that. But I do know that they resisted putting a fedora on Harrison Ford's hat to, make him look more like Sam Spade or Philip Marlowe.
Yeah.
But they literally were, at the last second, took it completely away because he was just off the set of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh.
I mean, literally, he came off the plane to go shoot this movie with the hat still on him from the desert. And they looked at him like, fuck, we got to get rid of it.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why Harrison Ford does not wear a hat. And you know what's another really cool thing about the weird like early stuff of Blade Runner that never got to be?
What?
You remember the brilliant opening scene of 2049?
Yes.
With the boiling pot?
Mm-hmm.
That scene was in the original script of this one.
Oh.
And it really was like they were actually, I think they were looking at several actors of the film noir genre, like much older actors, to do that. I think even Dustin Hoffman was like one of their top ones to do it.
I love the intro to 2040, the landscapes where you get to see.
Yeah.
If you thought the intro to this looked dystopian,
like holy
this
shit,
was so colorful, and then they show you 2049, and the movie itself is very colorful. But that opening scene where everything's white and gray, and you went, "That's the fall of this universe.
Yeah,
that's what these people think is dystopia, is the post-blackout."
Oh, I love that.
Oh yeah.
Like that's where they realized, oh shit, he's not human.
Oh yeah. Stone cold bitch right there.
Right?
I love Roy.
Oh, you know what's even crazier? They're actually in a freezer.
Oh wow.
Yeah, for real. That's because remember, this is the early CG days. The only way to get that cold breath was to literally freeze the set.
Oh,
they had to do the same thing with The Exorcist, and that's why to this day Linda Blair hates the cold, because they kept these things in frigid conditions. Oh,
it looks good though. It doesn't look like over there. I think I saw a review of Rent that pointed out how bad the CG fog was when they're singing in like the New York alleys.
Yeah.
And it's just so big and above their faces and fake.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, again, when you do it in camera, it just looks so much better.
And he looks so like with the ice and the blue eyes and the white hair.
It
just emphasizes his element as a person.
And his, like, again, no pun intended, his general coldness.
Yes.
But he's not like cool personality, just humanity.
Yeah.
Like Roy is very charming, actually.
Oh yeah. But he's the most stone cold of all of them. Like Leon's a bit awkward, Pris is a bit angry, like.
Yeah. He's like the most centered, which makes him the natural leader. And Rutger Hauer, this is just a performance of a lifetime. As a matter of fact, you know what? I really wish he lived just a few months longer, because, as you know, he passed away about 2 months ago, as of this recording.
Oh.
But I would have loved to think that if he had lived 2 months longer, he would have been so dedicated to this role that he waited till November 2019 to die. You're choking up, aren't you?
I'm thinking of that.
Because
that would have been.
He would have been so dedicated to the role that he would have died in November of 2019. Although technically speaking, because his Roy's incept date, according to his intro in the police station, it's January 2020.
Oh.
So this movie actually takes place from November 2019 to January 2020. We don't know, but that's apparently what's going to happen, and that adds a little bit, because I didn't realize this until a couple of weeks ago. the fact that he dies in the first month of the year 2020 is when he gains full hindsight vision.
Oh, when he
2020
gets...
vision.
Shut up. Get out of my house. This recording is over.
I think that's really subtle poetry. Honestly.
I know, but when you point it out, it's cheesy.
A little bit.
Yeah.
It's just because I didn't actually think about it until I saw his incept date.
Well, you could think of it as like the dawn of a new year as well.
Yeah.
And this Deckard gets 3 whole months to kill off the replicants.
Yeah.
Book Deckard did it all in one day.
Really? Androids Driven Electric Jeep.
He did it all in one day, and it just broke him.
Wow.
Because he needed to buy a pet. Because you're not a good person unless you can care for somebody else. Something else. So he has to kill 6 things so that he can afford a fucking ostrich or something. So that he can prove to other people that he's empathetic.
Huh.
Which is weird.
Fascinating.
I like it. I like the book a lot. But they couldn't do all those weird animal mental illness themes that they did in the book. Otherwise, this would be the most convoluted film ever.
Yeah. I'm actually curious, though, since you've seen the both, you've read the book and you've seen the movie, which do you prefer? That's a good question.
I prefer the movie, but
Really?
I think the book provides a lot more extra. I think like what the movie did was they picked one theme from the book and fully explored it at a deeper level than the book. But the book has more themes that you can pick up on and discuss.
Ah.
But I think that this took maybe a third of what was in the book and explored it to its fullest potential.
Right on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Deckard trying to challenge Rachel's humanity. Oh, boy. Also, I really love his apartment. Like, it's so lived in. And from what I've been told, it, like, was one of the reasons why this movie went way over budget.
Oh, because it cost all these little props that...
It cost, like, $200,000 to make the just this set. Which is nuts. Nuts. But I'm so glad that they took the time because, honestly, when they walked into that, they were like, this feels like an authentic apartment. Which is such a cool thing.
Especially compared to a lot of other science fiction that almost feels detachedly clean.
Yeah.
To have...
This right here is some Ghost in the Shell shit. The memories implanted and whatnot, and how memories can be artificially and replaced and deceived. Like, this is Ghost in the Shell before Ghost in the Shell.
There was another character in the book who was a replicant for sure.
Yeah.
That was a detective who was working with Deckard. And we knew he was a replicant and Deckard wasn't. Mm-hmm. And then he has to, like, kill him.
Ooh.
Oh.
Ooh.
They folded that in to his character.
That's exactly what you solve every existential crisis with.
But
whiskey.
Oh yeah, he's the one who has the breakdown in the book because he just despises androids just so much, and he's the one who's trying to talk Deckard through. It's like, oh, you know what? Oh, you know, they're nothing. You know, if you have trouble killing her, just sleep with her first. You know, and then get that out of the way. Like he is.
Damn.
Hates them, and then he realizes he might be one, and he's like, oh fuck, man.
Dude, that is a mindfuck.
Yeah, because he can't kill Pris in the book because he likes Rachel, and they come from the same mold. They look exactly the same. They're essentially sisters. So he's like, well, you know what? If you can't kill Pris because she looks like the girl you like, if you just fuck Rachel, you'll get it out of the way.
Damn, that is some... Wow.
Yeah. So he does that. He kills the android anyway. And he buys his fucking ostrich or sheep or whatever. He buys a goat, and Rachel pushes it off the roof.
Shit.
Yeah.
Wow. That's...
Okay, I lied. Maybe I like the book a whole lot better. There's a lot to it, though. I don't believe in... A lot of people say you read the book first and watch the movie. I don't know. I feel like you get extra content if you watch the movie first.
Yeah.
And you watch the better version of a small thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get all the bonus content when you read.
Yeah, well, see, what I love to do is, I usually read the book first. Usually.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's something really heady. Then I'll watch the movie. Although in most cases, a lot of cases, I've actually watched the film first. But because I still need to check out Heart of Darkness and 2001. I don't know if I can really bring myself to The Shining because Stephen King's version just sounds so silly by comparison. But that's a whole nother podcast.
There's stuff that's less silly in books that would just look stupid on the screen.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that I would be interested in The Shining that Stephen King pointed out about Jack Nicholson's character that I agree with
Yeah.
is that he's kind of shown to be off the hinges and abusive from the get-go, versus in King's story, he really wanted to show a normal man driven insane by insane circumstances.
Right.
Oh,
that blimp. You know, actually,
what this scene reminds me of is you keep bringing up Ghost in the Shell.
Yes.
And that really long sequence where it's just 2 minutes of city scenes.
Yeah.
They pepper that into this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
Chris's walk
there's a lot of moments where, you know, the camera's just allowed to breathe. And you get to take in the sight and the city and the mise-en-scène of it all.
It's like getting off of a plane and you're in a city you've never been in and you're exhausted and tired and you're just trying to just figure out where everything is or was.
Because remember, this is the birth of the cyberpunk genre, along with Necromancer.
Neuromancer.
Excuse me. Yeah, it's late.
But this is, I think, really where the visuals of cyberpunk kind of got
Yep,
there.
especially with the neon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually, you know, we were actually in Cincinnati, downtown for the what was it? Blink. That was actually where I, honest to God, felt like I was in the Blade Runner universe.
Oh yeah.
If it was either raining and or snowing out and there were more drones flying around, like the kind of, you know, camera or, you know, just fiber optic drones you would see in a park or whatnot flying through the buildings, I would have said, holy shit, I walked into Blade Runner.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's because there were these giant projections on the wall, because, you know, it felt like the avant-garde advertisements in Spike Jonze's Her.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it just... I got this weird sense of ethereal city community, you know?
Oh, yeah. Especially since, like, over 1 million people showed up to it the first year that it did, and it's just been growing. For those of our listeners who are from out of town, we live in Cincinnati, Ohio, and once a year they do a festival called Blink. In which buildings are encouraged to light up in neon colors, art installation and projections are put up on the wall, and the streets are closed down to allow people to walk through the entirety of downtown is this futuristic art installation.
Yeah, and it's brilliant. Honestly, you know what would be really cool if someone made a replica of that thing?
Yeah, you know, maybe not fully functional, but you could... That's what you should pitch for next Blink, is to have, like, a giant inflatable blimp or something with
like fiber optics lining around it.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool.
We could do a Blade Runner.
Actually, you know what? I should...
City of Cincinnati, pay us.
I actually would contact Adam Savage. Because, he actually made a very small miniature of that very blimp, complete with LED screens of the same advertisements and everything, and it's about the size of a football.
I wouldn't want to put a prop in the middle of the city. I'd want to take that aesthetic and, you know, kind of bring it to that more, I guess, more positive community vibe that, like, Blink had.
Yeah.
But definitely incorporating, I love the idea of something floating over the whole event.
Yes.
That would be dope. I think we should have something fly.
Yes. Because it's so cool. And you know what? another thing about Adam Savage that he is probably the world's foremost expert on, Rick Deckard's pistol.
Oh.
He has built...
I've not paid too much attention to that pistol, so...
He has probably built every single model that has ever existed, and he's built probably the closest replica to the original pistol as you can physically get.
I forgot what these guys are.
Those are small androids, which I'm sorry, they tried really hard. They're just little people. I'm sorry, I can't.
I know.
They're little people in costumes, and I just don't buy them as like robots.
Mm-hmm.
Give those extras some more mime training or whatnot. Or like when they're sitting still later on, actually use like a dummy and not just have an actor stand still, because it just looks...
Some good puppetry would be...
When you mix up the effects, then I think I would sell the effect more. But but although that does bring it up, Sebastian, who's the guy who brought him in.
Yeah, where does he... Because that was a name change. So where does J.F. Sebastian come from versus J.R. Eistor?
I'm not entirely sure. I guess they just... I mean, I know he's based on Isidore, but I guess they just changed the name for some unknown reason. But you know what is cool, though? Is that it got reincorporated into one of my favorite Batman animated series episodes.
Wait, Sebastian?
Yeah. They actually brought in the same guy who played him. There's the unicorn. They actually got the same guy to play him as a side character who works for Wayne Enterprises and makes an artificial intelligence called Hardak, and they make replicants.
Oh my
They
gosh.
literally use the word replicant. They went full Blade Runner with Batman the Animated Series, and it's
that's
awesome.
Great.
And then there's one, like a post episode, where they, before the Hardak was destroyed, it made a replicant of Bruce Wayne, and that replicant wakes up in a warehouse where some thieves are trying to steal it's old equipment. It gains sentience and thinks it's Batman.
Oh, and beats up the thieves.
Well, it also gains sentience and is like, I'm Batman. I have memories. I remember faces, names, things. It's like, can you remember your first kiss? Do you remember the last time you had a good steak? Yeah. No, I don't. Oh. Which is so cool. Like they had that was the first. I think that was one of my first exposures to Blade Runner, like ever. Was like
I don't see it referenced a lot, like in a pop culture-y way.
No, they totally like. They even went as far to get William Stevenson, who plays Sebastian in this movie.
Oh my god!
They even draw his character to his likeness, and his character is constantly surrounded by little robot friends to keep him company, just like Sebastian.
Oh man,
it's awesome. And this is another really great scene. This is where the cliche of enhance is born. This is not how photographs work. I am a photographer. I have worked with high-resolution images both digitally and physically, like actual celluloid. This is not how this works.
There was one insane person I met on DeviantArt who specifically, they drew these drawings that did do that.
Oh, really?
Where it was like a full-scale battle, and then you could zoom in because it's all digital art. And just, you'd see a portrait, and it was a perfect quality portrait. If you zoomed in, they got the type of detail where on a woman, you could draw the hairs on her face.
Holy crap.
Like, yeah. So they just kept zooming in. And kept doing more detail because they could.
I don't want to think about how much time it would have had to render that.
Well, enough to get on the front page.
Right? Because, dude, that is some sick level of detail.
Oh, yeah.
Like, just to render and export it and try to post it, like, we must have been talking about, tens, potentially even hundreds of gigabytes.
Oh, yeah.
Just for an image.
Yeah.
That's nuts. But also, there's another thing that this does. It's just like, this doesn't work that way.
Enhance. Wait, it goes around the corner.
Yes, exactly. This is Batman, like Adam West Batman TV logic.
Is there a way that a camera could take a 3D scan like that? I know there's hologram capturing cameras, or if there were multiple cameras in the room that a computer could put together in its computer brain.
There are cameras that have multiple lenses and take it simultaneously. It's actually kind of the basis of how the bullet time effect in The Matrix was made, where they have take multiple still images, or at least one camera with multiple lenses take an image at the same time to get a full 360-degree view. But the way it moves in perspective in here, it's just not it's just not quite the same how that works. And plus, when he is dealing with an already printed photograph,
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
If you put it printed now,
it
there's
just
a possibility you could have security systems.
well,
with
there's
multiple
also another
cameras, but-
another way that it might work, because if you remember in 2049, which I actually really thought this was really cool, when Kay is in the middle of the town square having his lunch, right before the prostitutes go over him, he's actually looking at pictures of the Rachel's burial site, but the pictures are moving, almost like they're sheets of paper with video on them,
Yeah.
like a printed GIF almost, I guess, in what the equivalent is in our universe. So maybe it's like a early version of a video file or something. I don't know, but the point is, like, a lot of this stuff that's going on is shut up. It sounds cool.
Oh yeah.
Like, even that's the other thing. Like, do you know why this is called why they're called Blade Runners?
What?
I shit you not. It was just because.
It sounds cool.
Well, okay. So here's the original story about this, and I really do love how the serial numbers are like ingrained into all the DNA, which is really cool. But what it was is originally it was supposed to be called "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?" They thought that was too wordy, so I think they settled for a working title called "Dangerous Days," which wound up being the title of the making of documentary. And eventually
that sounds a little more too generic. That doesn't pop out.
Exactly. And then they went with this book. Oh God, I forget who wrote it. But they just bought the rights to that book, and they just called it Blade Runner just because they thought that sounds really, really cool.
They just saw words they liked and were like, "Can we use it?"
Although, do you know what it's used in the original book?
I think it's just used as the title, like very just.
No, well, in
briefly.
the original book, Blade Runner, which has no resemblance to this.
Oh, the original book.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought I was like, when did they say Blade Runner? And because they just say it in passing and
Nope.
androids, but
Nope. They. Oh God, I really wish I remember what it was. But I do remember that the original term for Blade Runner in the book that they bought the rights to the title for, it's actually for a term of illegal surgeons dealing in surgical tools.
ooh,
Yeah, they deal with illegal
like an
surgical
arms
tools.
dealer, but
Yeah.
for
Blade
yeah.
Runner, which is hence where all the scalpels come from.
Oh, that actually sounds like an interesting
Yeah.
little story.
Oh,
I
Alan.
would love to read that and then just have science fiction to throw at healthcare issues
Yeah,
or
so
something.
the novel is called The Blade Runner, all one word,
Mm-hmm.
from 1974 by Alan E. Norse.
Mm-hmm. They use Blade Runner to sell the book now.
Yeah.
That's the title you'll see if you buy a
Oh,
new copy of it.
Well, see, after the movie was made, they literally just like took away Philip K. Dick's original title, "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?"
Yeah.
and just slapped the title Blade Runner
Sometimes
over
you
it.
see Blade Runner or stuff like that.
Did you know Philip K. Dick actually saw the work print of this?
What did he think of it?
He loved it.
I'd imagine, yeah.
Believe it or not, he was actually pissing on this movie through the entire production. He was like, "I fucking hate this. Don't want it to happen. Fuck you, filmmakers. I hate you." And then he saw the cityscapes, just like I think he saw the very first, just the opening titles of the movie, and he's like, "How the fuck did you get inside my head?"
Because this is one of the really great examples of, like, a lot of people think a good adaptation is a faithful, accurate adaptation. And this is a very unfaithful, inaccurate adaptation to the plot, the characters, the actual goings-on in the book. They leave, like, 2/3 of it out.
Yeah.
But thematically and visually, it is immersive and wonderful.
Yeah.
So when people are saying, "Oh, this movie would be good if only they remembered this detail about this thing," if you start caring whether or not your movie's accurate, It's because the movie's so boring that you're sitting there thinking of whether so-and-so's hair was the same color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, oh my god. But I just really love the fact that Philip K. Dick, because he saw this right before his death. The movie actually premiered just after he passed away. But he did see a work print copy, and he loved it. So I can only imagine if he saw this version of the film. Like, it's insane. And look, this is another thing that I really love.
The graffiti, the high-tech with the low...
See,
it looks like a touch tunes in a dive bar. Is
yes.
What it looks like.
Also, I really love the kind of shitty 80s music that's going on.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently, like, there was supposed to be, like, a full show. Like, we were going to have Zora raised out of the mud, and the stake comes out through the mud, and there was going to be a huge dance sequence. There was storyboarded. There was artwork for it. They never shot it. Oh, yeah. They just got too expensive, and they actually realized, you know what? It's probably best that we don't distract people with the show, because that's not what Deckard's here for. He's not here to watch the show. Yeah. He's here to get information.
The show is interesting in the book because it kind of covers that little debate that, like, artists have. It's like, oh, is art something that's high up that only a human emotion could make? Because she's like this opera singer who knows everything about, like, painting and all that. And it's like, if a robot can understand art.
Yeah.
It's just one of those little things that people say they can't do, that you see somebody say, and her whole plot is, instead of hiding with everybody else, she wants to go get a job and be useful to society, because she thinks if she gets a job and she's a good singer and all of that, then they won't question that she's a human.
Fascinating.
It's a good book.
It's
a good book, too.
I know. Believe me. The only reason why I put it off is because I wanted you to be the expert for this episode.
Yeah.
That's the only reason. But I really do love Harrison Ford's, like, nasally accent that he uses in here to make him a little more geeky.
I've heard it's a reference to, like, this old film noir where the detective pretends to be, like... Yeah.
Yep.
A book collector or something?
Yes. Just to get a little bit more info.
But I love his, like, little union rep boy.
It always felt a little bit weird, like, because, like, she's naked pretty much throughout this entire scene, and it's just like, how is this registering? Like, how do I know that it's crazy that she doesn't ask the same question, like, or the obvious question, like, how do I know that you're not one of those pervs?
Oh, yeah.
Motherfucker. Like, answer me that.
Well, I think, on one hand, if you're a stripper, you're not going to be that shy. So it's
Good
almost
point.
more him acting nervous is kind of funny.
True.
It's a little bit of comic relief before what's going to be a pretty intense scene.
Yeah, no kidding.
But
like, one of the most intense, for sure.
Yeah, the first blood for this movie.
Well, actually, I think this was the whole reason why the international cut exists, because... Like, the U.S. cut
probably just nipples or something.
Well, it's not that, but it's just how violent the scene was.
Yeah. I don't usually think of the U.S. as censoring violence. I have a friend who works in, like, international cuts and has had to take stuff out.
Yeah.
For, like, he's had to take out sound effects that have made things
Remember, you can kill as many people as you want, but if you show a nipple, it's bad.
Yeah. I was just imagining, like... when you said European cut, like, oh, more nipple during the shower, camera angle's different in the U.S. or something.
No, not really. It's mostly for the violence, believe it or not, which is the MPAA is so fucking weird. Yeah. But and then finally, like, shit. Yeah. Do not fuck with these replicants, man. They are strong. Also, that's another thing that I really love, the costume choice. It's just a clear raincoat. Like, it's still, like, showing that she's almost wearing nothing at all.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to think of whether there's a metaphor to covering up with something that doesn't cover up anything, or hiding with a clear lie, or I don't know. But I think it's mostly because it looks really, really dope once it gets in the neon.
Yeah, yeah. and with the glass and everything.
I think generally just clear reflecting neon lights.
And that's also a really dangerous thing to have, like anything reflective or shiny on a film set. Really, really dangerous.
Oh, in case the little camera.
Because it can reflect, everything from the script supervisor and the director and all the crew members and everything. Like, that's a scary thing to have, man. I'll tell you what. But again, it's also really. You know what? Also, this is a precursor to
what?
Tim Burton's Gotham.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, so much of this stuff was really innovative, and I know it's also because of, like, the momentum of sci-fi and crazy visuals and creativity going on in sci-fi and the genre, and not to mention the special effects getting super, super good. But because I know from the momentum that was built up from Jodorowsky's Dune, which is a great thing that you all should look up. Ridley Scott got access to a whole bunch of stuff. He got Giger. He got Jean-Giraud Mobius.
Ooh.
Mobius actually worked on quite a bit of this, believe it or not.
For real?
Yeah. And it kind of shows, which is really cool.
I also love how this scene shows, like, the overpopulation and the crowdedness of the city.
I also love why don't we have the neon umbrellas?
It would be cool.
We should.
I mean, we have clear umbrellas.
That should be something they should sell at Blink. The neon umbrellas.
Oh my god, if it was raining, I would. You could just get a clear umbrella. Though,
exactly.
And get an LED strip.
Probably.
Just mod that in your house. It would take 10 minutes and like $25.
Yeah, dude. I'm gonna have to get you like I
want a clear raincoat.
A clear raincoat now?
Yeah, I want a clear raincoat. I actually want like a yellow one that like the one that Joy has in 2049, like clear but colored.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Those look really cool to me.
Oh, here. Oh. This. Oh. Okay, this is actually another big thing.
Love this shot.
I'm gonna.
Oh, but I think the clear also.
The reflections.
Well, you get to see the reflections. I forgot that you get to see all of the blood and it clinging to the surface.
Yep.
And being carried around with her.
Yep. But here's something crazy. That's head replacement right there.
Head replacement?
That for the original cuts, it was very obvious that it was a stunt double because even though that glass is sugar, it's still really, really dangerous to work with.
If you're wearing almost nothing. Too.
So Ridley Scott said, I'm not going to have that actress go through that for real. We're going to have a stunt. The stunt woman did it phenomenally, but she had this awful wig and it was super obvious that it was a different person. And it really took you out of the moment. So they actually went back for this version, brought the original actress back in, who aged phenomenally well. I love that. Who aged phenomenally well, and they actually had her do a green screen shoot where they digitally replaced the stunt woman's head with her own. So throughout the entire scene, it truly is her performance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's really, really cool. That's the one thing that they actually did some additional photography for this version. Oh, man. I love from that angle she actually looks plastic.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
And she's running through, like, a hallway of... I guess mannequins keep appearing in this movie.
That is true, isn't it?
Yeah. And Chris even stages herself as a mannequin in her final scene.
Oh, I love this scene.
Not a lot of people have talked about that significance, so I'm piecing that together right now in my brain.
Yeah.
His little sit down.
Where he just needs... Where he just feels so sick to his stomach to what he did. Yeah. He just needs a drink, and I love this little moment right here. He's just so vulnerable. It's like he's ready to he just wants to burst out and just talk to someone and get his feelings off his chest.
Oh, yeah. You ever have those feelings, like, there are days that I have where it's like, I don't want to talk to any of my, like, friends or anything like that, because there's a sort of reciprocation where when you, like, you're expected to act fine, you're expected to act okay.
Mm-hmm.
And if you act negatively, then it's an invitation for them to also share their pain, and you don't have, like, the pressure for that emotional labor, like, right now. On days like that, some of the best things to do, like, are go to a grocery store or go to a bar and have that almost fake interaction with a real human, to, like, smile at somebody and have human interaction, but there's, like, a script there. So just getting a beer from somebody at a ramen stand is so much less effort than it is to try to talk about your feelings with somebody. You can have a very safe.
It's social interaction, but it's not social interaction.
Yeah, it's a safe dose of humanness without having to actually let yourself be vulnerable.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting tactic.
Mm-hmm.
God, I love the rain, how he uses it. You know, it's crazy how the rain is almost on and off in each individual scene. Like, here, there's a smoke. In the previous, there was rain. And it goes back and off in varying degrees. And you can tell that's just based on how freaking hard it was to maintain and, maintain continuity between days and whatnot.
You could almost imagine that in a big city, though, if there's, like, overhanging buildings or alleyways or a flying bus overhead.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you're in the city, you find, like, times where you're walking safely underneath an overpass for a long time, and then you get out and the rain's there again, and you go into the subway and it's gone.
Yep. Or some ways where it's just, because it's a spillway, there's just, like, pouring rain off of a side of a building or a bridge, but when you actually step out, it's just like a light mist.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's all just accumulating. Oh, I love this whole speech by Leon. Yep. That's a really great way to like the uncertainty of his mortality. God. Even
and
just
he just saw another one die, so.
Oh shit, he was about to poke
his eye out.
Like squeeze his eyes out.
Wake up, time to die is also a great description of how replicants basically live their lives.
Yeah.
They're all 4.
Yeah. And although it is kind of fitting that that's the other thing. Leon's spirit or animal avatar is a turtle.
Oh, because of the tortoise.
Slow. Well, not just the tortoise, but he's also very slow, very deliberate, very strong, like physically, but not very smart.
I wish they used more of those.
Those
the actual physical animals in the movie.
A little bit more motifs.
Maybe because the animal motif was pretty strong in the book, but I don't know. I would have liked those to be fully realized.
Yeah, that, and because, in this universe, all animals are basically extinct.
Yes.
So it's an interesting way to, another layer of how they keep those animals going. Even though they're all artificial, there's also this whole spiritual side to it as well.
Oh, yeah.
Not just the physical.
Full-on religion in the book about why you have to maintain a pet, like, as part of your due diligence as a human being, and why he's willing to kill people just to have a goat or something on a cage in his roof.
Right.
Yeah.
So, speaking of the animals, how do you feel about the unicorn dream sequence?
About the unicorn dream sequence?
Yeah. I know a lot of people can't stand it.
I have a very weird opinion. I guess unpopular opinion about the is Deckard a replicant type thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, that feels like a gimmick to me. Is he? Isn't he? The top in Inception? Are they really? I'm almost glad it was canonized, because I don't think it's the most interesting thing about the movie.
That's fair.
I don't think it matters if Deckard's a replicant or not, no matter how much you want to argue it. I don't think it affects the themes of the movie.
That's, well, it does affect it, but not to the extent that people make it out to be.
Yeah, it's more of a fun little fan debate. And I think there's more interesting things to talk about.
Very true.
I don't hate it.
Yeah.
But I think the dream sequence shows him dreaming of a unicorn. And since the guy puts down an origami of the unicorn, it means that he knows what his dreams are. thus dun dun dun. But I don't know what else it symbolizes besides that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
If you have insight on
well, because honestly, like,
the symbolism of the unicorn.
well, yeah, it's true. Although what's really interesting though, because like
Mm-hmm.
for the longest time, I always said that the question of whether or not he is or not
Mm-hmm.
is more interesting than the answer, which is why I was so against the sequel being made.
Yeah.
But if I actually had to answer it myself as an interpretation,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I actually would say?
What?
He is human.
Oh yeah.
That's and canonically speaking, like the way that they set it up is, it could go either way. Because I know Ridley Scott has said he's made it specifically ambiguous.
Yeah.
However, even though he
Even though he Word of Godded it later, but I never count Word of God as canon.
well, he says his preferred interpretation is that he is a replicant.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of which, here's our little hint right here
Is that you get?
with the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, that's just because of blocking. Because the way that they were able to get that effect is they had a very specific light shined onto a mirror at a 45-degree angle into the actor's eyes.
But it's kind of cool that the only time you see Deckard like that is when he's really blurry and off screen. So
and when
he's
and when he's attempting to connect to Rachel,
oh.
which is another really, but that's only because of the proximity to the actual effect on camera. So, but Ridley Scott does subscribe to the idea that he is in fact a replicant.
Yeah.
Which again I'm okay with, but I like to think that because I like to think that Deckard is human, just because it becomes more of an arc about understanding the other side.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like a person with a history of racism coming to terms of the awfulness that it is.
Exactly. And whether or not twist at the turn at the end you've been one of them the entire time, I don't think it affect, because since he doesn't know and none of the characters know, and really only kind of Word of God, some proof around, maybe Origami Guy knows, we as an audience figure that out. It doesn't affect his interactions.
No. And
it doesn't affect the way that he comes to terms with the humanity of the replicants.
I love Vangelis's love theme. Like this, because you mentioned like how this is like your chillaxing mix.
Yeah, this is like before my white noise mix comes on. Because I'm a very picky sleeper. I can't hear anything. I have to have like some music on. I have to have like 85 blankets. I have to go to the bathroom like I think like 1 minute before I get into bed. Otherwise I'll wake up. Yeah.
Right.
But I always have like some white noise or some music on, and Blade Runner's a good one.
I've just always been a fan of, the old film noir, like smooth, sexy saxophone jazz that you would hear. And because this has like an ethereal, dreamlike spin on that, it just elevates it even more, I think. Because like one of my people, like a really great question that I love asking people to get a idea of their sensories is, what's your favorite sound? Ooh. For me, it's the saxophone and footsteps in the snow.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So this is just...
There's a little pond in the park by my parents' house that has like frogs.
Yeah.
And they sound so pretty. I love frog sound. Then probably thunder and train tracks.
Nice.
Like I like that because I lived next to that train for a while, and I'm like, it just sounded so nice. Some people hate it, but I'm like, it's like the low growling sounds are good too.
I love the way that he just moves in like that. The photographs are also another really are another interesting recurring theme, at least with the whole idea of memory. you know?
Oh yeah.
I wish they had fleshed out that just a little bit more. But is that something that they do in the book?
Background stories? No, not really.
Well, I mean, even just with like the use of photographs
Mm,
as memories.
no, I can't recall that. If
Mm.
anything, like he's got a bitchy wife. Oh, like his home life. They've got a mood organ where you can just plug in what you want to feel, and he just plugs in feel happy and don't question me. But then she plugs in like depression, and he's like, why? And she's like, well, something bad happened and I didn't feel sad, so I wanted to feel sad. And I was like, whatever. She doesn't like him because he won't bring home a fucking roof ostrich or something.
This is where some very fascinating questions get raised.
Oh my gosh.
Like, does
If
this
you-
technically count as, like, does this technically
Oh,
count as rape?
It's definitely a rape scene, but it's not done in the. It's not done in
The traditional sense.
violent, awful.
It's
You understand why people do that. He's yearning for this connection,
yeah.
and then it's rejected to him, and so he resorts to violence, which is what he's been told he has to do
Yeah.
the entire time. And then it raises the question: is if you admit that this is assault, you're admitting that she's human, in my mind.
Yeah. Which is
Because if you can, and then I guess the other question is if you can be okay with murdering an android just because they're an android, then you're saying that they don't have value as in the same way that humans do. So
yeah, sentience.
if you're not objecting to the murder, you can't object. So I think I'd almost want it to be more problematic, because Squint in it's a love scene.
Yeah.
Squint in it's one of those, oh, he kisses her and then she realizes that she really wants him even though she says no, where it's more of a, he gets her to say yes.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to.
Oh, and then we have Pris in her iconic makeup. Do you know what actually?
In the book, she still doesn't want to, but she has motivations behind it.
Yes.
She's trying to, I think, seduce him so that he relates to the replicants more.
So playing to that kind of empathy.
Yeah, saying that, okay, if you can have this sort of sexual connection with me, then you won't be able to kill a replicant later. Because she doesn't vibe with that. And when he still kills the replicants, she kills the scope.
Damn.
Because she just...
See, this is where
my aesthetic comes. I love that, like, 80s Berlin goth look.
yeah.
Like, it's great.
But see, right here where you just know it's an actor,
That should have been a puppet right
I
there.
really wish they had used a puppet, just so because it's the old James Cameron method where you use multiple different special effects, so the effect is never there's the eyes. The effect, you never get used to one way how they did it. It becomes multiple ways, and therefore your eyes can never adjust to the effect.
Yeah, I always thought the little robots were weird and didn't add too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess her being able to pose as a mannequin is the purpose behind all of that.
Yeah.
But I think it should have been puppets. I think that would have been creepier and less like a Terry Gilliam children's film. Like,
Although, do you know that Daryl Hannah actually came up with the makeup idea herself?
oh really?
She
Nice.
based it off of Werner Herzog's vampire makeup in Nosferatu.
Oh whoa.
Yeah, no lie, like that's where that's from.
Mm-hmm.
And Sebastian, he's such a lonely little boy.
Oh.
That's the other thing. Sebastian, because he's so timid and small and kind of grayish, if you could say.
Mm-hmm.
His animal is supposed to be a mouse.
Oh, absolutely. I can see that.
Yeah.
I love his character in the book. I love his relationship with Pris and the concept of, like, the androids having low EQ and him having low IQ, and neither of them being considered human. And then you hope that they're going to reconcile. You hope that these two sides of society will actually create, like, a more human society than... And you hope that she's really empathizing with him. And then he finds this little spider. And a wild animal is, like, the most sacred thing. So he captures it in a little pill bottle, and he's so proud, and he shows her. She's like, why do they have so many legs? And pours it out on the table. And calls over to Roy, and Roy has a wife in the book.
Oh,
Him and
okay.
Pris aren't a thing. Come over and check this out. I think it could run with 4 legs. Do you think it could run with 4 legs? And
He pulls them off.
She cuts him off with the little nail scissors as he begs her not to. And then they talk about the spider just kind of giving up on life and sitting there resigned. And she says, I still think it could run. I just think it doesn't want to. Give me a lighter.
Holy shit.
And she keeps torturing it until he takes it and drowns it. And he's really into the animal empathy, but he has to kill the animal, otherwise she'll keep torturing it.
Whoa.
And it's one of the hardest scenes to read.
Damn.
And then that's the moment you realize, maybe on the other hand,
I'm going to have
empathy is necessary, and on the other hand, maybe they're not human. That raises the other side.
I'm going to have a really hard time reading that, dude.
Yeah. I think it's only like 2 pages of spider torture, but
Either way, that's yikes.
that actually is why the spider in my garden is named Pris Spider.
Oh, by the way, have you heard about the T-shirt war that went on during set?
No, I do not know about the T-shirt war.
Okay, so because the American crew was so fucking like just so fed up with his working style and whatnot, and his perfectionism, and just how much he was taking up time.
Yes.
That I believe they had they mockingly called him constantly the governor because he was English.
Yeah.
And eventually they actually created T-shirts that said, "Yes, governor, my ass." Like, "Yes, governor" on the front, "my ass" on the front and the back. And so Scott responded with a T-shirt of his own that said, "Xenophobia sucks." And actually came onto set wearing a hat that said governor. As opposed to director. Like the hat.
Cute.
And apparently, like, it got the crew to laugh a little bit, to the point where, like, okay, like, things we can actually breathe.
You can take a roast.
Exactly. So there was actually a little bit of a T-shirt war going on. Of course, like early in, like, the press actually read that as like, oh, Ridley Scott clashes with the crew and whatnot. And like, no, it wasn't. It was just like them just like
on-set roasting.
Yeah, because he honestly just wanted to dissuade it.
Especially with, like, acting, is you get drama.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Oh, yes, and of course the chess game. I forget...
The pieces are little owls.
Well, I also know that by either chance or design, it's never really been confirmed. Like, people... Like, I know Ridley Scott's been addressing it, but it's supposed to be based off of The Immortal Game, which is, like, one of the most famous chess games ever played.
Wait, the position of the pieces
yes.
are actually a reference. That's dope.
Now, I know that, from what I said, he says, oh, it's just a bunch of rubbish. But apparently, like, there's... I forget exactly the players, but I know it's, like, one of the most famous chess games ever played, called The Immortal Game, where it was won in a gambit. I love that. But it was one with a gambit of a sacrifice of a queen.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it was a really, really famous game. And I forget who plays it, which I should know a little bit better because I'm actually a really fond of chess.
Are you, like, follow the players and everything?
Well, not necessarily. But
But you know
I feel like I
names
should.
in the chess
fe-
world, and you're kicking yourself for not
no,
knowing
I
chess
just
people.
feel like I should know the history of it a little bit better.
Oh, yeah.
That's just me. I look
Did
it
you
up, but
hear
it's
about
late.
chess 2?
What's that?
Chess 2.
Chess 2?
It was invented by some MIT students who felt that chess was too close to being a solved game, and that a lot of times when they were playing chess, they felt like they just knew, okay, that position in the board, I have to do this, and wanted more, oh gosh, trying to think on your feet and improvise. So they have invented all these new pieces and all these new like board designs.
Cool.
Yeah. So that they could play chess fresh again without, having the entire history of everybody memorizing what move is the most strategic to play, because that's almost what chess is now.
It is. No, it totally is now.
Memorization, brute force memorization. It's a close. I don't know if it's a solved game mathematically, but it's been played for thousands of years. So this is the best move to make in this situation.
I actually think that by now it is a mathematically solved game, which is why you have computers that beat grand chess masters like the legendary Robert Fischer.
Oh yeah.
Who lost, I believe, in like the early '80s, late '70s. I forget exactly when. My history is a little sloppy right now. But yeah, this match here has very similar semblance to the Immortal game, which is really cool. And I also think it's really interesting that they have to play the Maker in order to grant access to his office.
Oh.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. He's almost testing them.
Yep. There's always, anytime chess is used in film, there's always interesting underscore that I really love doing. One of these days, I really kind of want to have an entire scene based off around the game.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a wonderful, wonderful metaphor. Sometimes it could be used obviously, sometimes it could be used more subtly, and sometimes really creatively.
The question is how to make it fresh.
Yes.
Because I've seen a lot of it.
Oh, of course.
You can look into the history of some people who played, I think there was one child prodigy who got really good at chess, solved it, got bored of it, and everybody wanted to play him.
Yeah.
So people hated him because he would either, remove 7 pieces from the board, turn around and read a book and just call out, like, squares. One of his favorite things to do was, he had retired from the game, like, go to chess halls and just sit there, have a cup of tea, and, like, leave, and not play anybody. So I'd love for somebody to play chess like an asshole. Can the Maker repair what he makes? Expand my lifespan.
You know what's another really great thing that I really, really fucking wish that they'd followed through with?
What?
There was an alternate ending to this. They never actually shot it.
The scene or the movie?
For this scene. It was in the script. They just didn't have the time to film it. But when Roy realizes he can get no more life and destroys his creator's head. Well, first off, they made a $20,000 fake head for him to crush that never made it to Final Cut because they weren't convinced of it.
Oh, like crushed between his hands that shows like his strength and reminds you that he's not human. Versus going with the metaphor of destroying the eyes. Yeah,
but the actual effect, they didn't like it, so they chucked $20,000 for nothing, which sucks. But here's the alternate ending that I actually wish they followed through with.
Yes.
When he crushes his head, like through the eyeballs and everything, instead of blood spurting out, it's wires.
I just think that dun dun dun, he's a replicant.
No, the thing is, Tyrell is still in the building, just in cryo sleep. Just in cryo sleep. The god has found immortality through his replicants.
Oh, that he's like continually downloading his brain into a
replicant.
So you have a different type of replicant, one that has authentic human memories.
Yeah.
I think that would be interesting if you fully explored it and then showed the cryotube and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think just...
Oh, they had the art for the cryotube and everything. Like, Tyrell was kept alive literally just to keep the company going, to keep the stocks up.
Oh man.
That was the whole reveal, like that when he crushed his head, like there would be wires and sparks and mechanical ooze
Okay.
coming from him, which I thought it would have been so cool, you know.
I have to sit and think on whether I like that better than I just love the death scene as it is right now. So I have to.
Well, it's
I'm,
also
yeah,
the whole thematic
thematic.
idea of going through the eyes.
Yeah.
And I also really love how, because this was also, again,
And of how like what you created will destroy you.
this was actually Rutger Hauer's idea to kiss him right before death,
Yeah.
which was honestly a really cool idea.
Mm-hmm.
And he was also he had a line.
Because that is almost the.
Oh God.
I feel like the only person like a straight man would kiss on like the lips like that would be like your own like father.
Yeah.
I feel like it's very intimate.
Yeah.
It's either familiar or romantic, and it's not romantic. So
No, that is quite literally the kiss of death right
Yeah.
there. Although Rutger Hauer had a line, and I really kind of wish that he tried to do it. It was a line that you could either interpret as being father or fucker. Just as he's squeezing, it's just like fucker.
Mm.
Another,
I would have liked to see it. Yeah.
or at least him really try to
Try
perform it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the idea that they wanted to go with, which again adds a
I
whole
think
nother
the kiss
layer.
shows that familial. I wish that I loved you type, but I resent everything you've made me to be.
Well, I'll give it in this. 2019 sure does. Or this our version of 2019. This isn't too far off. I'm not gonna lie.
You say that with every science fiction film.
Well, I mean, just because of how
Elaborate.
run down. Well, it's
Don't just yell "Okay, Boomer" into the mic.
well, it's just so run down and beat up.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing. Is like what you
Although
with dystopia and future society is. I don't think things will necessarily get better or worse. I think technology is going to change and raise more psychological questions, or overpopulation will drive us to isolate ourselves, and then we'll be ironically more lonely than ever. I don't think things get better. I don't think things
They just
get
morph.
worse. I think that people in the 80s looked at this and said, yeah, this looks like my apartment outside New York. And that's why it ages well, is because it's realistically shitty.
Mm-hmm.
But not so dystopian that you don't see it in your daily life. There aren't rape gangs wandering around. Like, it's just dirty and full of poverty
And multicultural.
multicultural.
Although
not in any of the speaking roles.
there is one thing that I do kind of want to take back though, because I remember there it is, spinner. I remember when 2019 finally came around the corner, and I'm like, yes, bring on my flying car. I want my flying car. I realized that would be a terrible thing right now.
Oh, gosh,
Not just
yeah.
because people fucking can't drive on the ground. Why would you put them in the air?
The emissions alone.
But the other thing is, and I love how it's actually implied through this world, all the flying cars are specifically for government vehicles.
Oh, yeah.
Which,
Well, if you go to the idea of, like, everybody has to pull off the road for an ambulance,
Mhm.
or policemen are allowed to run, like, red lights,
yeah,
that's
would
basically
just
just a
fly over.
high-tech way of running a red light.
yeah.
Which
Because,
is actually nice. I get tired of pulling over for ambulances.
well, actually, it terrifies me now. Because let's say we do have flying cars.
They can surveil
Let's say
you.
we do. If they they would become government-only vehicles, because that just gives them more power to them
Oh, yeah.
and less to us.
Mm-hmm.
That's really so. I'm kind
You
of
got
actually
me thinking
glad.
of surveillance, and then I looked at Pris's makeup, and there's a punk makeup movement where people are pushing makeup that specifically confuses facial recognition software.
Oh.
So it'll be like bold bangs in multiple colors, or squares and rectangles on your face, and it's inspired by the old razzle dazzle camouflage they used to use in ships. They applied it to the human face, and it can outwit computer sensors because they don't know where your face begins and ends.
Huh.
Now you have to walk around looking like a 1980s Berlin punk goth juggalo, but
they can't recognize.
They can't recognize you. You have to commit to the look.
That is some Minority Report shit,
it's
dude.
Awesome, yeah. That was at
cool.
that the same art exhibit that I was talking about earlier.
Right on.
Yeah, it's called CV Dazzle is the look.
Dude, that's cool. Oh, man, the way they photographed it, because this is the Bradbury Building, which has been used on hundreds of different movies, including some film noir from the past.
Mm-hmm.
They just really, really dressed it up for this movie, and
it's interesting that they brought in Bradbury because he doesn't do a lot of robot stuff.
No. Well, I mean, it's just the Bradbury Building in Los Angeles.
Oh wait, it's really called that?
Yeah.
They just didn't do a.
No.
I just thought that they named it.
No.
To go wink wink.
No.
Sci-fi.
No. They just used it because
it
was
the actual building the whole time.
Yeah.
I did not know that was its real name.
Yeah. No. That's a real building in Los Angeles.
Hey.
I'm sorry, dude. That's the one thing that I really just can't quite take seriously.
Yeah, they don't add more than they take away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think their entire purpose.
Good effort, though. I will give them that.
Is to create this.
Yes.
This scene is to build I build robots and stuff.
This feels like an antique shop.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, I believe they went to a whole bunch of antique shops just to give it that retro future look to it. Like, it's been cobbled together by old stuff and combined into this new thing, which, in fact, is how a heterotopia would work.
Oh, yeah. You would have recycling and hoarding and, and trash. The garbage has to go somewhere.
Yeah. Especially when this was at the dawn of our concern of Reaganomics and corporate power.
Oh yeah.
Oh, this. So do you?
That's how I want to die. Between Daryl Hannah's thighs.
Although that flip though. That wasn't Daryl Hannah. That wasn't even a woman.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so get this. They had the stunt woman, because obviously Daryl Hannah can't do the flips. But they had a stunt woman do the flips initially.
Mm-hmm.
They had her do it so many times that they actually tired her out. They got another male stunt person, dressed him up in drag, and had him do this flip right here.
Well, you know what? He deserves an Oscar for that tuck job alone, man.
Right?
Right?
Oh, I love the screams and her flailing around. Dude, so the sound and the acoustics.
Her rage and how she's almost a glitching machine. As there's a...
Oh, dude.
The juxtaposition. Not juxtaposition. Contrast.
Mm-hmm.
Between... we get to see Roy reach into a vat of liquid nitrogen.
Yes.
We also get to see her reach into...
Or Leon in... Yeah,
into the boiling water.
Yeah.
In the other scene. So her, pure unadulterated rage here versus his, calm, cool, and collected, I think is a motif with those two.
Yeah, that's
really
interesting.
The fire and ice, to be
cliche.
Yeah. But...
Well, see, Leon was the one who put his hand in the liquid nitrogen.
Oh,
Roy is the perfect balance between the two. They both go down fighting because they don't accept it. Roy is the only one who actually accepts his death.
Mm-hmm. He realizes that there's nothing he can do but try to live his life with
purpose.
His version of dignity, I think I was going to say, or pride. I think at the very end he goes against his program. Was he supposed to be a soldier unit?
Yes.
And so one of the last things he does with his time left on Earth
is save someone.
Save someone's life.
That's so interesting, isn't it?
And I think humans can learn from that. So much of what we do is out of fear of death.
Yeah.
If you accept death, maybe
You know, that's actually
and focus on self-change and what you do with your life in its inevitable march.
God, give it up to
Goes
Daryl
down.
Hannah to actually go with the tongue sticking out.
Ugh. But yeah.
You know, I actually remember because Rutger Hauer wrote a lot of his own dialogue because he's just kind of that guy. Which is
Respect.
literally the only other time that's ever worked is Apocalypse Now with Marlon Brando.
Oh yeah.
Literally
That's
the
Marlon
only other
Brando.
time. But he actually had like he was like kind of like really questioning Ridley Scott, like, why the hell am I going to save this guy at the end? Like, I really don't see any reason. And he's like, just don't think about it. Just go for it.
Mhm.
And he did, and I forget his exact direction, but yeah. Oh man, that Jesus. Also, can we just say that this also feels very precursor to The Matrix?
Oh yeah.
Like the collapsible walls, the crazy neon
Now I'm
lights. Like,
picturing Rutger Hauer going, Mr. Anderson, it is
Oh!
inevitable.
ow!
I guess you see him first.
Oh, he's giving him a handicap. Oh shit. I think he kind of enjoys the hunt.
Yeah. He's probably programmed to like it. To like his job. But he's not doing it for programming, he's doing it for revenge, I think.
Yeah. He's just
To
toying
show
with
he
them.
cares for his other replicants, though, too.
Yeah.
Because that's a very empathetic thing to do, is to close her eyes and her mouth.
Yeah. I think at one point even he's gonna take off his coat and cover her.
Mm-hmm. And then at the very end, he learns empathy for humans, I
Yeah.
guess. Or maybe he's just saving him to spite.
There's
His
again,
programming.
it's open to so much interpretation.
Yeah.
You know.
Maybe he just does it for him because he wants to, I don't know,
Get a taste of life.
try his hand at.
Or because he knows he's gonna die,
Mhm.
he just doesn't want him to die alone.
Oh.
He doesn't want to die in the company of nobody. He wants at least somebody within his company.
You know, we talk about them not being, like, empathetic, but this is one of the only, like,
Moments where he
80s male leads who is crying on screen right now.
Yeah. Ah.
Like, you can't deny that's raw emotion, like, in
Yeah.
his face right there. So it's.
There's the howling.
Mhm.
I know, like, many, many years before he passed away, Rutger Hauer always said, "This is my favorite movie of mine.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this is my favorite performance." And it's definitely the one that's he's gonna be remembered for forever. And as a matter of
If
fact,
I was in a scene like this, I would just watch these, like, few minutes over and over.
Yeah, because it's kind of an actor's dream. Especially because, and as a matter of fact, he loved this movie so much that he, with his salary that he earned from this,
Mhm.
he actually bought a small yacht and christened it the Blade Runner.
Oh. Oh, that's fun.
I think even his autobiography that he wrote, it's called All These Moments.
Oh.
Yeah. And I know Ridley Scott has said, out of all the films he's made, and he's made quite a few, as we know, like not just like Alien, Kingdom of Heaven, and all those.
Yeah.
Like, he says Blade Runner is his most personal and complete film. Because
I think especially working over, like, such a long period of time, like you said, with the multiple edits and
Yep.
being able to rearrange the footage and just
Well, you know what else was really driving him to do it at the time?
sit a long time in the editing room and think, like.
Well, the other thing that really drove him,
Mhm.
especially, and it also really kind of made him to go for that darker tone that was very similar in Alien, just pushed even further, was actually the death of his brother. That because he died about 2 years before he started working on this movie,
Oh.
and he incorporated a lot of his feelings into this film. God. Well, there's our obligatory Christianity symbolism. Yeah, dude. These sets. And also give it up to, like, even have, like, water constantly running. Because water can ruin a set, and, like, you have no idea. Like, a wet set, super hard to maintain.
Oh, yeah. Especially when you're if you've got blood on an actor and you're trying to keep continuity up.
Oh, it's such a mess.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus. Man, these are just two actors just way... I think this is like them taking out all the rage of the entire production just into this one thing.
Oh, yeah.
Dude.
Well, he only knows he's got like 10 seconds left of life to give fucks up for. So
yeah.
He's got all his excess fucks, and he's giving them all simultaneously. And he's just so enraged.
The wolf has lost its pack.
Oh.
You know? Also, I just love the because a lot of for this cut, a lot of the extended matte paintings are all brand new.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I'll be they look better than any other version I've seen. A little bit of the most dangerous game there, am I right?
Oh yeah. I feel like I'm a big animal somewhere in Australia, and some hunter is after me, and this is the last thing I see before I die.
I know, right?
I don't know what the fuck they hunt in Australia, but yeah.
Decker just has no place to run, man.
Some guy in a safari hat coming after me with a bazooka. That's what I see in his eyes.
Yeah. Oh, I also love that touch with his fingers. Like he can't actually use them.
He can't actually grip and...
It's a good thing Harrison Ford...
You just feel pain.
It's a good thing Harrison Ford has those carpenter hands.
You can tell he's got those stubby little fingernails that, like, I've seen, like, woodworkers.
Farmers have. I've seen a lot.
I had an art teacher who had, like, that going on.
Yep. I've had a couple friends who wound up being farmers. They had the stubbiest fingernails I've ever seen in my life. Oh, yeah,
because you keep pushing it, flattens it out.
Yep.
My nails are getting like that right now, so... I need to get a manicure.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously, a lot of these sets remind me of what really are the precursor to The Matrix and Dark City and Donnie Darko, like all these great film noir, like like sci-fi noirs.
And I think there's a hotel set in one of the BioShock games that I feel heavily borrows from.
Oh, it has to have.
Yeah.
It has to.
It's wet the whole time. You're running through different hotel rooms. It's
the fans. Oh, and this stunt. I remember this. Where he's about to jump the building. So, apparently the stunt guy was actually supposed to make that jump.
Ooh.
And because he was wearing such a wet, heavy raincoat, he knew he was not going to make it, so he grabbed onto the edge.
I love
just
it,
like this.
It just, you feel pain and tension. And
oh,
I like when the hero's pathetic or the hero is in a very vulnerable state. Because the only reason he wins is because, you know, he is saved by the bell.
Yeah. There. But it's so crazy because that looks super dangerous because it was dangerous. And I also really love how they had the birds to set up the dove.
Oh, yeah.
Earlier on. And actually, the Rutger Hauer, the jump that the stuntman couldn't make, he actually made the jump.
Hey!
Yeah. But that's mostly because he wasn't weighed down by a heavy costume.
Yeah. So he's not wearing a duster. He's wearing spandex shorts.
Oh, God, those eyes.
And they're not reflective in this final scene.
Yeah, you would think that they would.
I think it's metaphorical of him gaining his humanity.
Yeah. It's interesting just now.
I reject my programming. I'm going to do what I think.
I'm going to defy my programming as my final act. Also, so I don't have to die alone.
Yeah. I want somebody to hear my story. And... yeah.
Yeah. So, I mentioned before we began the movie that when I first saw this movie, and remember, it was the director's cut, throughout the entire movie, I was like, I don't know what the hell is going on. It looks great, but I don't know what the fuck I'm watching.
Yeah, I think that's about 70% of everybody's first viewing of Blade Runner, and maybe the themes start to click towards the end.
Then, this scene happens. That's when everything clicked, and I'm like, okay, this is a masterpiece that I'm bear witnessing to. That's poetry. And what I love is that the entire scene is completely in close-up. I remember people when...
Just keep it intimate for once instead of like the...
Yes.
The focus is finally on the people
And the dove.
versus the set.
This was the shot that I was talking about.
Oh, originally was it just in like a...
It was just
generic background?
It was a generic, stupid background. It wasn't raining. It was a clear sky. It was bogus.
Wait,
I
was
hated
this for the workshop one? It
For
might have been a
every
placeholder
version
scene.
before this.
Oh no!
I know, that's how bad it was.
I could see that as a placeholder if you're editing and you're like, we're gonna pick up the dove shot later, but
This. That is perfection.
And maybe
filmmaking, the way it rises.
Deckard lives because he wanted to connect with another human for like 5 seconds, or connect with a human for 5 seconds, or another replicant, or whatever, a person.
And he did with a replicant, and that's where he finally discovers his not just the humanity of the replicants, but also his own.
Oh yeah.
But you know why I really hate the work print version?
Why?
When you see the spinner rise up behind him, it's in a wide shot, not the close up.
Oh, where
it takes away so much of the moment. I was mad. I was genuinely mad.
This is an intrapersonal exchange between these two men.
Yes. It should be entirely in close up. Yeah. Great line. But yeah,
Death
dude.
comes to us all, everyone. I'm thinking about that a lot right now. Like,
but
that speech got me.
It always does.
Yeah.
It's
when you die, your memories will all, and the only legacy he has is being able to say those like 2 sentences to Deckard.
Yeah.
And that's the only imprint of his memory.
Yeah.
That's gonna even be there, and Deckard might not even give a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't know this man.
Mm-hmm.
This man is a Blade Runner man.
Yeah.
He might not care about your melodramatic speech, but it's all you can do to try to pass on something before you die. Which he's completely accepted now. He knows.
And that's all Rutger Hauer too. Like,
I did not know how much of this was his vision
literally,
of the character.
Well, I mean, 90% of that speech was his. Like, he wrote, like, almost all of that. He even came up with the whole Tears in Rain.
Oh, my gosh.
Because there was, like, a long soliloquy written, and it's like, he looked at pretty much every other iteration of the script, and he's like, I really can't do this. Like, I'll take elements and pieces, but no matter how you write this, it's bad.
Especially because I don't think that character would give something lengthy and pretentious.
Or, because any way you write it, it's going to be written. And the only way you can actually perform it is if you make them as you're there in the moment. Because that's what film really is about, capturing that moment. And as a matter of fact, I remember, even though, like, because that was one of the last things that they had shot, and it was like, 5 a.m, people are ready to go, but when he performed that scene, everyone just applauded. A couple people broke down in tears just because it was so...
The one time I believe everybody clapped.
Yeah. It's got... I can only imagine how Rutger Hauer must have felt throughout the rest of his life, because that truly was his finest hour.
It's that sort of, like, succinct emotional speech that somebody who is, for the first time, expressing their emotion, like, but hits at something really real, would say.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think a soldier robot would give a paragraph-long soliloquy.
No. Oh, there it is.
There's the unicorn.
I'd still like to think that's just a coincidence. And you know what's also interesting?
I would just like, I like it ambiguous. I think it's best as, is he, isn't he, and does it really matter?
For me, for the longest time, again, I felt like the question didn't matter. Or the answer didn't matter. The question's more interesting.
Yeah.
I would say he was human, because that's what partially the story was about. But I'm just really glad that it ended there. Do you know there's an alternate ending?
No, I'm gonna say my viewpoint is either answer isn't as interesting as him kind of being both. Kind of being in the Schrodinger's cat position of, it shouldn't matter what you are. You know?
Yeah.
There is no difference. So
that's an even better way to look at it, because that just plays to the sympathy of both sides even better.
Yeah.
I like that.
Versus that that Inception kind of question is, I like it a little more subtle.
Yeah.
And I think it's good in the movie. I think I got very tired very fast of the fan debate, because I don't think that that's what they're trying to do. Sometimes ambiguity is intentional.
Yeah. And it definitely is here.
Yeah.
I mean, even Ridley Scott says, even though I do subscribe to the whole idea that Deckard is a replicant, I have by design made it ambiguous to make your own interpretation.
Because it makes a better
This
movie.
is just what I think.
And now you can't argue it, because 2049 canonizes that he's a replicant. He's a replicant. Yeah.
Which I'm okay with, honestly, because, like you said, still one of the, like, only one of many interesting questions that this and 2049 raises.
We might cover the sequel later.
We have
really
to, like, honestly, because I was so blown away by 2049 that yes, it's so much fun to talk about.
I want to read Pale Fire just because Joy picked it up for 2 seconds. And then I'll come back and I'll continue to obnoxiously explain books to people.
Right.
There's another... There are more books by Philip K. Dick that seem to take place in the same universe.
Yeah, I believe it. It's he kind of in the same realm of what Asimov does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read We Can Build You, which seemed to take place at the formation of the Rosen Company, which is Tyrell. Yeah. In this one. But I need to see if there's any other books, because it's so far in the past that I can't quite connect the dots world building wise. Except for there's another Priss.
Oh, really?
There was a real human Priss who Priss was based off of, and I don't like her. But I love her. But I don't. But she's great. I stand a queen. Okay. You were saying about another ending.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So this is one that I'm again so glad that Scott just completely threw out the window because fuck it, it's bullshit.
Oh, no.
I hate it. The producers felt like there needed to be a little bit more of a happy ending, like because
He survived and walks out with the girl. Like, that's all you need.
well, the reason why they wanted a more happy ending because the movie really is a bleak movie.
Oh, yeah.
With really heady and cerebral kind of themes.
This is already a happy ending twist on the book.
True.
This is already a happier version.
Very true, but you really don't understand just what the pop culture
I know what it is. I'm just mad about it.
No, I am too.
Yeah,
but like the whole mindset of because 1982 was Blade Runner.
Yeah.
That was also E.T., Poltergeist, Return of the Jedi was just over the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
Rambo, like all these like really like positive, fun, action poppy popcorn movies were out at the time.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, this is really depressing." But
I think there's a gentle hope at the end.
True. It's just that they were looking at it, and they were just looking at a lot of the dailies and just being like, "This is really depressing."
Yeah.
Can we like get a little bit more of like something hopeful? So what they had was Rachel and Deckard driving away through a countryside to live off with a new life.
You don't see the expression on my face everywhere. Do they sing Somewhere It's Green? Is that what that?
No.
Yeah, I think that the ending is the least depressing part of this movie.
Oh, I agree.
It's not, my goat died, my wife left me, the replicant doesn't like me, I killed 6 people, and I lost my humanity, I'm just gonna cry, which is the end of the book.
I think at least like what the producers were thinking were like, hey, can we have like one scene where they're driving, where we actually see them driving away up Phil K. Dick.
Oh.
But they actually have them driving away, and we want to see them through a country road or like a forest road and a neighborhood road, or just like driving where trees are passing by, just so we can see trees and we have the confidence or the contrast of the dark city that we've seen.
I hate happy endings posted onto like dark stories.
They're
I
awful.
love happy endings in a cheesy movie. Give me a rom-com, give me a happy ending. I'm like, yay! But
with this,
that was already the happiest part of the movie is,
yeah.
Tum Tum, I love you. Let's go out. Maybe I'm a replicant.
Whatever.
We're all good. The battle is over.
Yeah.
The job you got dragged in to do that you didn't want to do, it's over. It's safe, and you got the girl. And life's still shitty, but now there's a quiet hope that you can live in peace.
But no, they insisted on doing. They totally insisted on doing that.
Good,
but
didn't make it in.
Here's an even weirder part.
Mm-hmm.
When they were cut to the wide shot of them driving through the mountainous like countryside, they actually used unused footage of the opening of The Shining.
No.
Yeah, I know.
Creepy.
Yeah, I know. Like,
that's creepy.
Because Stanley Kubrick is such a perfectionist and just like has mountains and mountains and mountains of unused footage, like he had roughly 2.5 weeks worth of just mountain helicopter footage for the opening.
Oh yeah,
that's a lot.
A list of horror movies that open with homages to that.
Yeah.
What was it? The Silenced, which I was talking about,
yes.
that Korean film that I make all my friends watch. I think it was Midsummer does that, but then they turn the camera all the way around so it's driving on the top of the screen by the end of the shot. There's a lot of movies that open with that exact cinematography of the car driving, and I'm like, shining. That I could pick out that footage from anywhere.
Well, I mean, they actually
Shining cars is my game.
They use like the actual footage, like because they actually even called up Stanley Kubrick, like himself.
Can we have your B-roll?
Which is super rare because he's so private.
Yeah.
And they're like, can we use some of your disused stuff? And he is like, absolutely, so long as it didn't appear in the final cut of The Shining, which because there were already mountains of unused stuff. They were totally happy to oblige.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of cool that they actually got like a little bit of
it's cool they got permission, but I also think if their intention was a happy ending, that shot is inherently uncanny.
Yeah, it's
You
and
can
plus
say objectively it's a car through trees that's happy. And maybe it would have made me like it a little more if, okay, you go into nature and it's still iffy.
well, it's also, well, there's still a nature out there, because as we saw, the world of Blade Runner 2049 or 2019, really bleak and dark, like very industrial, and you're like, do trees even exist
Yeah,
anymore?
but if you go to like modern day China, you know, that would be a city, and then you drive 2 hours out to the countryside, and
Mm-hmm.
completely different.
Exactly. Although that's not the case when 2049
No,
shows
you
up.
can absolutely tell for sure.
Like, oh no, the world has gone to shit.
Yeah, you can tell they like even agriculture has changed. I love like protein farms. Like people can't even get.
Yeah.
I bought some cricket protein powder the
Oh,
other
you did?
day at the It's coming in the mail.
Fuck
So
off.
I might. Do you want a cookie dough cricket protein bar?
Possibly.
I might bring one over.
I might try it just to say I did.
Just I'm getting prepared for our future. You know.
Because, well, I mean, that's the other thing that I really loved about 2049 is, like, because, as you know, this movie kind of played on the whole, like, anxiety of, like, what the 80s really started to get anxious about, which was big corporation business and, low levels of, even though we have high technology, there's still extreme poverty and drug use and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I love like the ideas of natural decay and isolation in
But
2049.
In 2049, they also bring up the whole global warming thing now.
Oh yeah,
Because if you remember,
that's what I brought up with natural decay and whatever.
yeah, but the whole opening where it looks like it's snow, there's gray snow, it's
yeah.
super bleak out.
It's all the scenes from this movie, but instead of the color and the light and the fire, they've been abandoned and dark. I think you do see the pyramid building, and it's just
Super small now by comparison to the Wallace Corporation.
Mm-hmm. Or if you remember, like Tyrell Corp's, like with them flaunting like the owls and the animals and stuff.
Yeah.
I think they mentioned the horse.
Yes.
Is worth more than like a gazillion pounds of gold.
Yeah.
And Wallace does his whole room in this Japanese wood panel Zen style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so now it's even trees are fucking gone too.
Trees are gone too. Because I actually I do remember what really like just hit me super hard was that the opening sequence where Kay goes back to the LAPD to get his test going. It's snowing with gray. The skies are dark. The sky is perpetually gray or completely dark out.
Mm-hmm.
Snow is falling, gray snow. And when it shows the date, it is June 30th, 2049.
Oh, fuck. I didn't even put those two together.
It's only because I recently rewatched 2049, and I'm like, oh my god, it's in June?
Yeah, because you were paying attention to the dates for this one.
Yes.
And I guess, the ending of 2049 is him lying down in the snow. Yes. So I guess you get rain and snow as thematic elements of the two films.
Yes.
Well, we need to do a future podcast on
2049
before we exhaust all the material.
Absolutely, because these are such heady movies.
Oh yeah.
And we're going to keep talking about them for a very long time, long after 2019 has passed. Because even though this is the year, there's still so much more to explore from it and to learn from it, I think. Not just from the themes and the ideas, but also even just from the filmmaking itself.
Oh yeah.
And
I think it stays open and stays relevant because I don't think it answers any of the questions that it poses.
Yeah.
But just make sure that you're thinking about them.
99
is always the best thing to do.
95% of the time in science fiction, questions are far more interesting than answers.
Oh yeah, because you never really know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Wow. That has been a fun episode.
Oh yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, you guys.
I'm glad to revisit this.
Yes.
It's been a while since I've seen the movie.
It really has been. This is definitely one I'm gonna have to pop in every once in a while. I need to sit you down and see some of the other cuts.
Yes. Yeah. I haven't seen any of them.
Even though you might
might hate them.
You're probably gonna throw shit, honestly.
Voiceover, I will throw shit.
Actually, you know what?
I have PTSD from Dune, Tim. I can't do voiceover.
No, actually, you're probably gonna laugh throughout the entire thing instead of throw shit.
Yeah.
Just because Harrison Ford's Harrison Ford sounds so disinterested throughout the entire movie.
Harrison
hilarious.
phoning it in. Yeah.
Harrison phoning it in.
I like. I think I said this earlier.
Harrison
I love
Fording it in.
watching him not give a fuck during interviews.
Oh my gosh.
He's like, just somebody asked me about my pilot's license. I hate Star Wars. Please.
It's like, can't we talk about how cool this new plane is?
So who shot first? Please kill me.
Like, he's like, who shot first? I did. Bam.
You know what I want to imagine? So you know who hates interviews about his movie more than Harrison Ford ever will?
George Lucas.
Robert Pattinson hates getting interviewed about his role in Twilight. He hates it so much.
Oh, boy.
He wanted some money. He's not a well-known actor. He wanted, like, maybe a good cash grab and to get well-known in the U.S. And he hates being Edward. And I want him to grow old and grumpy and surpass Harrison Ford as the oldest, grumpiest actor who hates his job.
Actually, can we see Robert Pattinson in a Blade Runner movie? Like, a split... Like
I would watch... There was a movie he was in that had, like, heavy neon themes that I need to find. It's about...
Because I would love to see him take on a replicant role.
Yeah.
Or just even like a... Oh, man, if Robert Pattinson instead of Ryan Gosling... That would have been interesting, honestly.
Oh, Good Time. That was the movie that I saw him in. And it's got, I guess, this color palette to it. Very neon-y.
Oh, okay.
It's about a guy who he like commits petty crimes, and his brother, who's mentally disabled, gets taken in by the cops. And in order to make like bail money, he has to like pull one last heist because his brother doesn't have the capability to like survive in prison.
Yeah, it looks like one of those. It's really funny how like.
But it's got that neon color palette too.
Well, yeah, because one thing that I've actually noticed, especially with films like by Nicholas Winding Refn, is that present day film noir often replaces the stark black and white with neon and colors. Because
we're talking about a city at night, like a heavily populated city at night. That's
well, even just like the color palettes of that. Because I often see like these action adventure thriller or even just straight thriller films. Often, like if you were to put these in black and white, they would look straight up like film noir. But because those were black and white and now we're dealing with color, they throw a bunch of color with the neon. And I think that's very present in, neo-noir films like Dark City.
Detective Pikachu.
Yeah. That works. No, it worked. No, that totally qualifies. Believe it, honestly, it totally does. But also like Drive is another one.
Absolutely.
Where it just really pumps up and plays with the color of light and color.
Well, even if you think about when color wasn't a thing in movie, the high contrast
was the style.
Yeah, and it's still heavily influencing light. Light is a heavy influence on it.
Yes,
yeah.
And I honestly believe that Blade Runner is the whole reason why these neo film noirs of the present have such like a crazy color light palette.
Yeah, I agree absolutely.
Yeah,
it kind of stuck that aesthetic for
It's still going on.
Future funk, yeah.
Like if you see like one of those indie action thriller films, 90% of the time you'll see like colored lights. Like another great use is the use of tail lights as red lights to.
Oh yeah.
Because that's worked very well in the beginning of Goodfellas with the where they stab the guy and with the death.
Akira flashbacks myself.
Akira is another really great one. But. And even Ghost in the Shell.
Oh yeah.
Like, and not the well, I mean, yeah, you could argue the 2017 remake. I mean, a lot of the city is obviously played on this instead of.
The remake was almost lifting directly from the anime to give it a new audience more than it was innovating anything in my mind.
That should be another one, honestly, in the future.
Oh.
Both the anime and the live action.
We'll start with the anime.
Well, yeah, because.
You Yeah.
Because it's
Because I want to watch
'cause
the anime.
it's so much better for you guys. It's so much better. Like the new one is just so frustrating to watch.
Oh man.
It's because you're like,
I appreciate like the intention of adaptations to bring things to new audiences.
mhm,
There are people who won't read comic books. There would be people who wouldn't know what Akira was if it wasn't a movie because nobody reads manga.
yeah,
You know, vice versa. You know, some people just in the West we just don't watch cartoons.
Yeah.
So I appreciate maybe getting it back into the spotlight.
Yeah.
Via live action film, but there's no comparison.
no.
I don't think it deserves its own episode, but I'd watch it again.
Did you hear who's making the live action version of Akira?
Who?
Taika Waititi.
Okay. You know what? You get a chance, sir. I like you.
I do.
I like you.
I still need to see Jojo Rabbit, which
I do too. It's not out where we are.
No,
yet.
it is. Like
around here.
Yeah, a friend of ours actually went to go see it,
nice.
so I'm probably gonna go check it out this weekend.
Because I remember it wasn't out on its official release date around here. Yeah, I guess I'll go see it this weekend then. No.
Because honestly,
because I've been Googling it every 10 days or so.
For sure, dude. Because Taika Waititi is it's being delayed a lot.
He's great.
It's being delayed a lot because he's got his hands in like a whole bunch of other projects. But honestly, I'm really interested just because he's so well known for his comedy.
Oh yeah.
Like I don't know how that's going to translate to the kind of bleak, like childlike wonder of Akira.
Yeah, he can tell dark stories within his comedy, but I've never. It's a different tone.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see how he does it.
Yeah.
All right.
So, this has been a very wonderful, extensive episode of Comtrack. I really hope you guys have enjoyed it. And next week, or next month, this December, we are dropping some heavy, heavy bombs your way. We are going to be taking on the extended cuts of the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I'm
man.
excited. I'm super excited, you guys. This is going to be big. But until then, we'll be back in December. So I've been Tim.
I've been Hannah.
And this has been Comtrack, where you'll never have to watch a movie alone again.
Peace.